Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom to the whole house, the whole Ba'it of Yashar'al, all 12 tribes worldwide, wherever your feet are touching the soil on this most separated, this most set apart, this most Kadush day, which is a sign, a seal, and a mark of the everlasting covenant between Yahuwah and his people. This is the day that joins us into covenant with him. This is the day that identifies us as his covenant people. This is the day that identifies him as the Elohim of creation. Shabbat Shalom to you, wherever your feet are touching the soil, wherever you are listening under the sound of my voice. Peace and blessings, shalom and barakut to you and your entire house. Shabbat shalom to the elder brother Yahudah. Shabbat shalom to the younger brother Ephraim. Shabbat shalom to the former stranger, the former foreigner who was formerly estranged from the everlasting covenant, but having received the Ruach of adoption, the Ruach HaKadosh, the Ruach of Yahushua HaMashiach, and whereby having been engrafted into the olive tree, who is Yahushua HaMashiach, who is Yashar'al, and whereby now becoming privy to the very same everlasting covenant and promise and inheritance that was given to Yashar'al and to Yashar'al alone. Shabbat Shalom to you. Wherever you are, whether you are here live listening, or whether you will hear this message, this proclamation later on. Shabbat Shalom to you and your entire house. To those of you who are on YouTube who will hear this message later on as customary, if you have a desire to join us live, once this teaching, this message has been uploaded to video, there will be an email address located within the video description of which you can use to email us and contact us if you have a desire to fellowship with us and join us live for either our fourth day gatherings, otherwise what man calls Wednesday, or our Shabbat gatherings, or otherwise what man calls Saturday. If you have a desire to join us live, use that email address. Send us an email. We would truthfully love to hear from you to discuss fellowship with you. Fellowship with who? We are Yahuwah's remnant. Who is Yahuwah's remnant? We are indeed not some church. We are not some 501(c)(3) organization. We're not some camp. We're not some ministry. We are simply who we are, and that is Yahuwah's remnant people, of whom he is gathering in this season from the four corners of the earth, sealing us with the Ruach HaKadosh, with the seal of the living Elohim, bringing us out of the nations, out of darkness, back into the safety of the confines of his fence, as the great shepherd of the sheep goes forth to the four corners of the earth, proclaiming, and to whomever has eyes to see and ears to hear and a heart to understand, because indeed his sheep hear his voice, and as his sheep hear his voice, they're now coming out of the nations, they're now coming out of darkness, and they're coming and they're coming and crowding within the safety of the confines of his fence. Barak Yahuwah, which is a holding pen, which is a point of embarkation, which is a place where he is gathering his sheep in preparation to board the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of Safety that has been sent already in order to gather his people and to keep us from the hour of trial, which is soon to come upon this earth. This is who we are. We're not some church. We're not some 501(c)(3) organization. We're not some camp, and we're not some ministry. We are Yahuwah's remnant. And so if you are in our midst or have a desire to fellowship with us, then perhaps you too are remnant people. Then perhaps you too have been chosen, and that you too are being sealed in this season to be kept from the hour of trial, which is soon to come. upon this earth. Nevertheless, we are Yahuwah's remnant, and welcome to you. Welcome to Yahuwah's remnant Shabbat gathering. I am Dawood ben Yahuwah, and this is my Aisha Ashayah.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom to you and your family, to you and your entire house on this most kadosh, this most set apart, this most separated day. Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom, Shabbat Shalom. There is a word from Yahuwah for his people, for his remnant people. His remnant people. No one else. No one else. This message is not for anyone else outside of his remnant people, because only his remnant people will have ears to hear in this season, and eyes to see, and a heart to understand. And so the Master indeed has a message for his people. I'm not going to do, I get weary of doing recaps, and so I'm not really going to do a lengthy recap of where we are. If you are those who are on YouTube who have never tuned in before, you got a lot of catching up to do. You've got a whole lot of catching up to do on this ancient path. And listen, we don't have any more time. We are out of time. We don't have any more time. This indeed is the consummation of the times. There is great distress that is getting ready to come upon this earth and to distress the whole earth. And this earth is never going to be the same again. There is a time of death that is coming upon this earth that the earth has never seen before, nor will the earth ever see again. And so we are here now at the consummation of the times, and we're moving forward. We're moving forward. We're not looking behind like Lot's wife. We're not looking to the left. We're not looking to the right. Our eyes are fixed on that which is unseen. Our eyes are fixed on the ancient path, on the narrow way, on the way that is hard pressed that leads to everlasting life. And so we don't have a lot of time to spend looking back. In fact, we don't have any time to spend looking back. If you, again, as the Master has spoken, if you have the discernment of a gnat, if you have the discernment of a gnat, if you have the discernment of an ant knows when an ant knows when the season has changed. Yes, he does. An ant knows, and an ant does what? He spends his time in preparation for the seasonal changes. Yes, he does. An ant will prepare for the cold times to come. Yes, he will. He will prepare for the cold times to come. I dare you to go out in the wintertime somewhere in the south and look for an ant when it's cold. No, he's somewhere comfortable in the earth where it's warm, and he has stored plenty of food, and he is prepared because he has noticed the seasonal changes. So if you have the discernment of an ant, you understand that this is the consummation of the time. That the hour of trial is even at the door. The great distress is at the door. It's at the door. And it won't be long before the hour of trial comes upon this earth, and his people who are sealed are redeemed, are removed from the earth. That's the text. That's the scriptures. These are not my words. It will not be long. And the Master has given us the understanding. His remnant people, he's given us the understanding that people who is to be reserved or preserved from the hour of trial are his covenant people, And the Master has further given us the understanding that the house, the nation of Yasharal was once one people. 12 tribes was once one people. But as of the year 722 BCE, that one nation of people became two nations. Became two nations of people, and the house of Yasharal was split into between the southern kingdom and the northern kingdom. The southern kingdom called Yahudah, which is comprised of the tribe of Yahudah and the tribe of Benjamin, and the priesthood, the Kahanah, resides within Yahudah. The northern kingdom, called Ephraim, who is the younger son, is comprised of 10 tribes. These 10 tribes in accordance with Genesis chapter 48 and verse 19, has become the nations, has become the completion of the nations, has become every nation, tribe, and tongue. Ephraim, Ephraim, Yashar'al, Shamarum was divorced in the year 722 BCE, and they remain divorced until this day. Yes, they do. They will not be returned back to covenant with the master until after the great distress. They must have the folly, they must have the wickedness driven out of them before they are fit for marriage. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. And as we learned last week, they are now being turned over. They're going to be turned over to Hashatan for correction. He is the correcting rod. He is the rod of correction. They are going to be turned over him for correction. In other words, their flesh is going to be turned over to him for destruction. Yes, the destroyer comes. Whereas Yahuwah, who was never divorced, and remains his covenant people unto this day, he is preserving a remnant. And that remnant number is 144,000 to escape the hour of trial. As the elder daughter is always given in marriage first before the younger. Genesis chapter 29, go and read it. The elder daughter being Leah, who is the mother of Yahuwah. The younger daughter being Rachel, or Rachel, who is the mother of Yahushua, commonly called Joseph, who is the father of Ephraim, commonly called Ephraim, or Ephraim. And as Leah was given in marriage first, and as it was declared there, that it was not the custom of that land to give the younger before the elder, the master honors this. The younger will not go before the elder. Thus, in the words of the master, not my words, he has declared to his servant to declare to his people that Yahuwah goes first. Yahuwah is to be brought to Mount Zion first, and from Mount Zion, Yahuwah is to be brought back into the land first. And then after the great distress, in accordance with Revelation 7, when every nation, tribe, tongue, and people, having washed their robes in the great distress, come out, this is none other than Ephraim. And so the master has been giving us a series of building blocks to ensure that we are walking as Yahudim and that we are not walking as Ephraim. So as to keep us from being lured into the valley of oh no, where we will be found saying, oh no, when the hour of distress comes. He has given us a series of building blocks in order to conform ourselves to these building blocks, in order to conform ourselves to an ultimate example, that ultimate example being Yahushua HaMashiach, the ultimate Yahudi man, to ensure that we are found well doing when it comes to gather the elder daughter to be joined to him in marriage first, in fact, who was never divorced, to bring us to Mount Zion, to redeem us from the earth, to redeem us from the hour of trial, to save us from the hour of trial, and to give us a song that no one else can sing. Last week, last Shabbat, actually I'm not going to go back that far because the master, he's been talking about a greater separation. And last Shabbat was no different. He's been talking about a greater separation to his people. And this greater separation is unprecedented, because we're looking at 7+ billion people on this earth, and that greater separation from this 7+ billion people is going to add up to 144,000 people worldwide. And he has shown us now by this last fourth day message that separation. What is that greater separation? First of all, that greater separation is Yahushua HaMashiach. He is the greater separation. But he gave us a clearer understanding of what we are being separated from. And that is, we're being separated from destruction. We're being separated from the destroyer. We're being separated from death unto life. Because death, indeed, is getting ready to wrap himself up in flesh and come to this earth. And an unprecedented time is getting ready to unfold upon this earth. An unprecedented era, a time of death is coming upon this earth that has never been seen before, nor will ever be seen again. You see, this is how he punishes disobedience. Yes, he does. The wages of sin is death. Yes, it is. This is Torah. The wages of sin is death. But see, you've got to understand the mind of Yahuwah. And you cannot understand the mind of Yahuwah unless you have the spirit, the Ruach of Yahuwah. As it is written, no one knows no one knows the mind of the man, but the spirit, the Ruach of the man. No one knows the mind of Yahuwah, but the Ruach of Yahuwah. And we who have the Ruach of the Mashiach, we know the mind of Yahuwah. And so to know the mind of Yahuwah is to understand his compassion and is to understand his ways and to understand that this time of unprecedented death that is coming upon the earth, that is even compassion. Yes, it is. Yes, it is. It's compassion. It is the punishing rod of the master. Because a good father will punish and chastise his children. And the great distress is no different. It is judgment. It is correction. It is the punishing rod of Yahuwah upon the back of his children. What do you think Torah is? It's chastisement. It is the father using instructions to chastise his children. You commit adultery, you're stoned, and you die. Well, you might say, well, how is that compassion? Well, you must understand the mind of Yahuwah. Yahuwah is not flesh and blood. Yahuwah is Ruach. Yahuwah cares nothing for the flesh. The flesh profits nothing. He would rather destroy your wicked flesh so that your soul will be saved. This is the mind of Yahuwah. And so all those who were stoned under the Torah for committing adultery or for doing what is contrary to the Torah, who was stoned to death, he did so out of compassion. A compassionate, loving father disciplining his children, destroying the flesh so that their souls will be saved. The great distress ain't no different. This is why there's going to be so much death. Because the whole earth has transgressed this Torah. And Ephraim is chief among them. Ephraim now is the nations. He is the Gentiles. He is every nation, tribe, and tongue. Yes, he is. And the great distress is coming for him to correct him. Does it not say in Yahu chapter 30 that out of distress Yahuwah will be saved? Yes, he will. Yes, he will. Even if that means the destruction of his flesh, as we read this past fourth day in 1 Corinthians chapter 5, when the man was found having his father's wife, which is a transgression of the Torah, which is punishable by death. And the judgment was declared to turn this one over to the destroyer. Turn this one over to Hashatan for the destruction of his flesh so that his soul will be saved. This is that punishing, correcting rod of the Master Yahuwah called the great distress that's coming. When the destroyer of flesh, when destruction comes upon this earth to destroy much flesh. In fact, the text declares if those days are not shortened, that no flesh shall remain. But how many of you know, I don't know about you, but a good parent, although he will chastise and discipline his children, he does not enjoy it. He does not like to do it. He does not enjoy doing this thing. He doesn't. And our Father, our loving, compassionate Father is no different. He would rather that you just be a good son, a good daughter, and obey him. Don't give him any trouble so that your days in the land are long. He would prefer that you would just repent and obey him. Unfortunately, only a small remnant of people, 144,000, are going to hear this message of repentance in this season and turn back to him and receive the seal of the living Elohim and be kept from the destroyer, from destruction, from death, from correction, which is soon to come upon this earth. This week, this message is no different. We're still talking about, the Master is still talking about a greater separation. A greater separation that is occurring right before our eyes. Separating his covenant people. Separating his remnant people from the nations. And preserving this remnant people. And keeping them safe from the hour of trial which is soon to come upon the earth. The Master in previous messages has now revealed to us that Yahushua, he is that greater separation. He is. There is no greater message that is being proclaimed in this season, that Yahushua is the greater separation. And if it doesn't look like Yahushua, it's wrong. That there are many things that are being proclaimed and taught, and that there are many things that are being professed in this season, but that there is no greater message than the message of Yahushua, who is the greater separation. In fact, the text declares that if we lift him up, then all men will be drawn unto him. We lift up Yahushua here. We lift up Yahushua impaled here. Because there is no life outside of him. There is no life outside of the stone that the builders rejected, who has become the chief cornerstone. He is the greater separation. And there is no more important lesson or message that is being proclaimed in this season. Him in us, us in him, the expectation of esteem. He is the one that separates us from the nations. He is the one that separates us from death to life. If he isn't in you, you're still dead. You're still a dead one. You're still a dead man, a dead woman walking. If the Mashiach is not in you, you're dead. And only a small remnant of folk are going to receive this, and only a small remnant of people, 144,000 worldwide, truly have the seal of the living Elohim and truly have Yahushua in them, and thus separating them from the time that is to come, from the great distress, the great death that is coming soon upon the earth. Everybody else is going to be left to the valley of Ono. If you know the story of Nehemiah and Sanballat, Nakamyah and Sanballat tried to lure Nakamyah into the valley of Ono to destroy him, to kill him. Most are going to be lured as Sanballat tried to lure Nakamyah to the valley of Ono, to the valley of destruction, to destroy him, where you're going to be caught unaware, saying, oh no, how did I end up here? During the great distress. Hear him if you have ears. Receive this message. Yahushua is the greater separation. Yahushua is the greater separation. He is the one that's separating us from death to life, and who will separate us unto himself upon Mount Zion. So if you're taking notes this day, the title of this message is Searching for the Ancient Path, Part 84. Searching for the Ancient Path, Part 84. Take heed. The greater separation has begun. The destroyer comes. Searching for the Ancient Path, Part 84. Take heed. The greater separation has begun. The destroyer comes. And as a subtitle of this teaching, if you're still taking notes, this is something that the Master himself spoke a little over a year ago. These are his words. They're not mine. They are his. Yes, he still speaks to me. They are his words. Many are called, few are chosen. Not all will come. Do not mourn. Many are called, few are chosen. Not all will come. Do not mourn. Do not mourn. Along those veins, line upon line, precept upon precept, we're talking about a greater separation, and Yahushua HaMashiach being that greater separation, and how many are called, but few are chosen. Only few are separated unto life. Not all will come. Do not mourn. Do not mourn. Do not mourn. Turn to the book of Matthew. Matat Yahu. Where are we at, little one? Chapter 10?
Chapter 10.
Matat Yahu, Matthew. Chapter 10. Matat Yahu, Matthew. Chapter 10. What you're going to begin to understand that it's always been about a separation. This time is nothing new. This is ancient. It's always been about separation. The only difference is we're talking about an unprecedented separation. We're talking about a greater separation that has never been seen before. Where you have now 7+ billion people upon this earth, whereas during the time of the first distress, during the time of the flood, there were a little over 800,000 people on the entire earth. Now there's 7+ billion people on the earth, and he's talking about separating 144,000 from 7+ billion people, which is less than 1% of the earth's population. We're talking about an unprecedented greater separation. But separation, hear him, separation is nothing new for his covenant people. This is ancient. This is the ancient path. Separation is nothing new for his covenant people. The operative word here being his covenant people. Matthew chapter 10, what verses, little one?
34 to 36.
Verses 34 to 36. Matat Yahu, chapter 10, verses 34 to 36. Beginning at verse 34. Read, little one.
Do not think that I have come to bring shalom on earth. I did not come to bring shalom, but a sword.
But a sword, a dividing, two-edged sword. To divide, to separate, to divide, to separate. Read.
For I have come to bring division.
I've come to bring separation, division. Read.
A man against his father.
A man against his father.
A daughter against her mother.
A daughter against her mother.
And a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law.
And a daughter-in-law against her mother-in-law.
And a man's enemies are those of his own household.
And a man's enemy are those of his own household. Many are called, few are chosen. Not all will come. Do not mourn. Do not mourn. Do not unbind your turban. Do not mourn. Some people whom you love, he came to bring a sword to separate and divide some people whom you love dearly, provided that you are remnant, covenant people, remnant within the remnant, some people that you love very dearly. You're going to be separated from, and are going to be left behind to the great. I don't want to add to the text, but to give you a better context of what is coming, to give you a better context, the great correction that is coming upon this earth. Most are going to be a part of that great correction. You need to count up the cost and resolve that in your mind right now. And allow that greater separation to occur. You must allow that greater separation to occur. You must allow Yahuwah to do what Yahuwah does. You must not put your hands in the midst of it. You must not turn back like Lot's wife. You must allow this greater separation to occur. And if the master shows you that someone does not belong with you, that they are a part of that other side of the separation, that they are standing in the midst of the valley of Ono and not know it, you must indeed separate yourself. Lest you be drawn in the valley of Ono with them. You're going to lose some folk. You're going to lose some people. And the person that may be lost, if you're not careful, if the greater separation is not in you, is that person looking back at you in a mirror. It first begins introspectively, looking at the mirror at ourselves and examining ourselves, because if we're not careful, that person that is going to be left for that great correction to the valley of Ono could be that person staring back at you in the mirror. If the greater separation is not in you, there is no greater message being proclaimed. He is the greater separation. Yahushua HaMashiach. There is much foolishness that is being proclaimed and taught in this season, but I know nothing but Mashiach impel. Him and me and him, the expectation of esteem. I exalt him, I lift him up, and let all men be drawn unto him. There is no more greater message. He is the greater separation. He is the greater separation. We don't have to do a recap of this. If you've seen last Wednesday, he is the greater separation. He is the one that separates us from death to life, that separates us from the destroyer, that separates us from destruction, that snatches us out of his hand and brings us to the kingdom of his marvelous light, the kingdom of life. Him and him alone. But to 7+ billion people, he is still a stumbling block because they don't understand him. They don't understand him. Why? Because he's not in them. They don't know him. He's not known them. As a man knows a woman, he's not entered them. They don't know him. Their souls have not been joined. There's not a soul tie, and thus they do not know his mind. Only the spirit of the man knows the mind of a man. And we cannot know the mind of Yahuwah. We cannot know his will and his desire unless the greater separation is in us, Yahushua HaMashiach, who teaches us the mind of the master, his will and his desire, the spirit of truth, who will lead us into all truth and who will not allow us to walk in any falsehood. There's a greater separation going on, and you're gonna have to get your crying out the way right now. If you are indeed one of his sealed ones, you're going to have to get your crying and your mourning out of the way right now, lest you be led to the valley of oh no with those whom you love. He didn't come to bring shalom. He came to bring a sword. He came to bring separation. He came to bring division. This message of separation is not something new. But we're talking about a greater separation now. 144,000. verses 7 plus billion folk. We're talking about an unprecedented separation that the earth has never seen before, nor will it ever see again. Give us another precept, little one.
Exodus 32.
Exodus, Shamut, chapter 32. Exodus, Shamut, chapter 32. Exodus, Shamut, chapter 32. This message of separation is not something new. It's not a new message. We have always been a separated people. His people, his covenant people, has always been a separated people. His covenant people, which in this season is Yahuwah, has always been a separated people. Yahuwah is those natural branches of the olive tree that were never plucked off. Whereas the wild branches are the nations. This is Ephraim. This is Ephraim. But in this season, because Ephraim is still divorced, but Ephraim can engraft into the olive tree and attach itself to Yahuwah, to his covenant people, because we will not be one nation of Yahshua until two sticks become one. Yahuwah and Ephraim becomes one after the great distress. Then we will become one covenant people again. Until then, the scepter, the staff, shall not pass from Yahuwah, nor a lawgiver from between his feet, until Shiloh comes. So the nations are still welcome. You're still welcome, Ephraim. You're still welcome. But don't come boast above the natural branches, but you're still welcome to come and learn from your older brother, your elder brother, of how to walk as Yahudim. But a separation, as his covenant people, has always been separated. There's nothing new. To be in covenant with him, you must be separated from all wickedness. You must be separated from the nations. You must be separated from the Gentiles. You must be separated from every unclean thing. You must be a separated people from every unclean thing to be considered his covenant people. This message of separation is nothing new. Some call it set apartness. Some call it holiness. This message of separation is not something new. But he is separating a people unto himself in this season who truly look like, act like, and have the nature and the character of Yahushua HaMashiach. The greater separation. Exodus, Shamut, chapter 32, beginning at verse 1. Read, little one.
And when the people saw that Moshe was so long in coming down from the mountain, the people gathered together to Aharon and said to him, Arise, make us mighty ones who go before us. For this Moshe, the man who brought us up out of the land of Mitzrayim, we do not know what has become of him. And Aharon said to them, Take off the golden earrings which are in your ears of your wives, your sons and your daughters, and bring them to me. And all the people took off the golden earrings which were in their ears, and brought them to Aharon. And he took this from their hand, and he formed it with an engraving tool, and made a molded calf. And they said, This is your mighty one, O Yasharal, that brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. And Aharon saw and built a slaughter place before it. And Aharon called out and said, Tomorrow is a festival to Yahuwah. And they rose early on the next day and offered ascending offerings and brought shalom offerings. And the people sat down to eat and drink and rose up to play. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, Go get down, for your people whom you brought out of the land of Mitzrayim have corrupted themselves. They have turned aside quickly out of the way which I commanded them. They have made themselves a molded calf, and have bowed themselves to it and slaughtered to it, and said, This is your mighty one, O Yasharal, who brought you out of the land of Mitzrayim. And Yahuwah said to Moshe, I have seen this people, and I see it is a stiff-necked people. And now let me alone, that my wrath might burn against them, and I consume them, and I make of you a great nation. But Moshe pleaded with Yahuwah, his Elohim, and said, Yahuwah, why does your wrath burn against your people, whom you have brought out of the land of Mitzrayim with great power and with a strong hand? Why should the Mitzrayim speak and say, For evil has brought them out to kill them in the mountains, and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from the heat of your wrath, and relent from this evil to your people. Remember Abraham, Ishak, and Yasharal, your servants, to whom you swore by yourself and said to them, I increase your seed like the stars of the heavens, and all this land that I have spoken of I give to your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. And Yahuwah relented from the evil which he said he would do to his people. And Moshe turned and went down from the mountain, and in his hand were the 2 tablets of the witness, tablets written on both their sides, written on the one and on the other. And the tablets were the work of Elohim, and the writing was the writing of Elohim engraved on the tablets. And Yahushua heard the noise of the people as they shouted, and he said to Moshe, A noise of battle in the camp. But he said, It is not the sound of those who shout of might, nor is it the sound of those who cry out in weakness, but the sound of singing that I hear. And it came to be, as soon as he came near the camp, that he saw the calf and the dancing. And Moshe's displeasure burned, and he threw the tablets out of his hand and broke them at the foot of the mountain. And he took the calf which they had made and burned it in the fire, and ground it into powder, and scattered it on the face of the water, and made the children of Yasharal drink it. And Moshe said to Aaron, What did this people do to you, that you have brought so great a sin upon them? And Aaron said, Do not let the displeasure of my master burn. You know the people, that it is in evil. And they said to me, Make us mighty ones who go before us. For this Moshe, the man who brought us out of the land of Mitzrayim, we do not know what has become of him. And I said to them, Whoever has gold, let them take it off. And they gave it to me. And I threw it into the fire, and this calf came out. And Moshe saw that the people were let loose, for Aharon had let them loose, to their shame among their enemies. And Moshe stood in the entrance of the camp and said,
Listen, read.
Who is for Yahuwah?
Who is for Yahuwah? Read.
Come to me.
Come to me.
And all the sons of Levi gathered themselves to him.
And all the sons of Levi, of Louis, gathered themselves together. Read.
And he said to them, Thus said Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharal.
Thus says Yahuwah, Elohim of Yasharal. Read.
Each one put his sword on his side.
Each one put his sword on his side, and I did not come to bring shalom, but a sword. I come to make you enemies against your father, against your mother, against your son, your daughter, your sister, or your brother. And a man's own enemies, as we see here, would be those of his own household, because these are Aaron's brothers and sisters and relatives threatened to kill him if he didn't make a golden calf. You're going to have to make a choice in this greater separation. This message of separation is not something new. Count up the cost right now. Get your mourning out of the way right now. If you desire to live, get your mourning out of the way right now, because you're going to have to prove your loyalty. And you're going to have to choose this day who you serve. You're going to have to choose this day who you love. If anyone loves son or daughter, sister or brother, husband or wife, more than him, you are not worthy to be called his taught one. Choose this day who you will serve. Gird your sword on your sides. Come on, read.
Pass over to and fro.
Pass over to and fro.
From gate to gate in the camp.
From gate to gate in the camp.
And each one killed his brother.
And each one killed his brother. Yeah, I come to bring a dividing sword between brother and brother, sister and brother, husband and wife, son and father and son, and mother and mother and daughter-in-law. I come to bring a sword. Yeah, that's a greater separation going on. Come on, read.
And each one his friend.
And each one his friend. Read.
And each one his relative.
And each one his relative. Read.
And the sons of Levi did according to the word of Masha.
And the sons of Levi did according to the word of Masha. Will you do so? Read.
And about 3,000 men of the people fell that day.
Yes.
And Masha said, you are ordained for Yahuwah today.
You are ordained for Yahuwah this day.
Since each one has been against his son,
yes,
and his brother,
yes,
so as to bring upon you a blessing today.
Yeah.
And it came to be on the next day.
You can stop right there, little one. You can stop right there, Barak Yahuwah. Do you not understand that we were never supposed to be a nation under priests, but a nation of priests? Do you not understand that those who are gathered to Mount Zion, that this is a priesthood? This is a priesthood gathered unto Mount Zion. This is a higher standard of separation. And those who are attached to us. This is a higher standard of separation. One who will not spare wife, brother, sister, son or daughter, husband. One who will not spare. That is a priesthood that will be gathered to Mount Zion. And this indeed is a greater separation. So separation is nothing new. We've always been a separated people, and we've always have had to make a choice between good and evil, darkness and light, righteousness and unrighteousness, the clean and the unclean. We've always had to make a distinction between these things and to separate ourselves from everything that is displeasing to the master. Sometimes at great cost. Thus, you've got to count up the cost, because this thing is costly. It's very costly. And yes, the path is narrow, and it is hard pressed, and few find it. Many are called, few are chosen. Not many will come, not all will come. Do not mourn. Do not mourn as this greater separation continues. And separation, again, is nothing new in the midst of his covenant people, his true covenant people. Separation is nothing new. But I draw your attention, though, back to the focus of this message, and that is Yahushua HaMashiach. He is the greater separation. It is he who caused those Levites to gird their swords and go through the camp and slay relatives and brothers and close friends. It is he who caused them to do that, because he is the greater separation. And without him, one can do not. Without him, one cannot do that which is pleasing to the master. He comes to bring a sword. He is the greater separation that separates us from the destroyer unto life. Many of our relatives, as we read here, are going to be destroyed. Many of them are going to be destroyed because the destroyer is coming with a sword, no different than Nebuchadnezzar, and no different than the Greek king Antiochus Epiphanes. And some of the other wicked emperors, of the Roman emperors, and some of the other wicked emperors who came with the sword to punish his people, to destroy. Hashatan coming as Pharaoh, because he is Pharaoh, as the earth is Egypt, and he is Pharaoh. He is coming with a dividing, destroying sword to destroy those who are not on the side of righteousness. Choose this day who you will serve. There is no greater message that is being proclaimed. Seek the master. seek Yahushua with all your heart, mind, and strength. Did I tell you to worship Yahushua? No, I did not. I'm not a Christian. Worship Yahuwah. You worship Yahuwah, but you understand that there is no way to Yahuwah outside of Yahushua HaMashiach, who is the Ruach HaKadosh, who is the greater separation, who is the blood of the Lamb applied upon the doorpost, the blood being the Ruach HaKadosh applied upon us. He is the greater separation. That blood that keeps us safe from the destroyer that is soon to come upon this earth, to keep us from death, because the life of the creature is in its blood. And so it is the blood that gives us life. It is the blood of the Lamb that gives us life. And so unless we eat of his flesh and drink of his blood, we have no life in us. Indeed, the flesh profits nothing. We're talking about Ruach here. He is the greater separation that gives us life and separates us from destruction. Come on, read, little one.
Leviticus 21-8.
Yes. Leviticus, Uikra, chapter 20, verses 1-8. Uikra, chapter 20, verses 1-8. It is he who separates us. It is he who separates us. He is the greater separation. It is he who divides us and separates us from death. There is no greater message being proclaimed. It is he who is the Ruach HaKadosh, who is the separated spirit, the separated Ruach, who separates us from death unto life, who separates us from destruction unto life, who snatches us out of the hand of the destroyer. See, this is a stumbling block to most. This is a stumbling block. Many profess that they know him, but the minute they open their mouths, for out of the abundance, for out of the overflow of the mouth, the heart speaks. The minute they open their mouths, it is abundantly clear that they don't know him. Abundantly clear. Even if they try to hide it, the minute you see their actions, the fig leaves are removed, and they are standing there completely naked, like the emperor's new clothes. Everybody know you're naked but you. Leviticus chapter 20, verse 1-8, beginning at verse 1. Come on, read.
And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying, Say to the children of Yasharal, any man of the children of Yasharal, or of the strangers who sojourn in Yasharal, who gives any of his offspring to Malak, shall certainly be put to death. The people of the land shall stone him with stones, and I shall set my face against that man, and I shall cut him off from the midst of his people, because he has given of his offspring to Malak, so as to defile my Kadush place, and to profane my Kadush name. And if the people of the land at all hide their eyes from the man, as he gives any of his offspring to Malak, and they do not kill him, then I shall set my face against that man, and against his clan, and shall cut him off. And all who go whoring after him, even go whoring after Malak from the midst of their people. And the being who turns to mediums and to spiritists to go whoring after them, I shall set my face against that being and cut him off from the midst of his people. And you shall kadush yourselves apart and shall be kadush, for I am Yahuwah. And
you shall kadush, you shall separate yourselves. Read.
For I am Yahuwah your Elohim.
Who?
Yahuwah your Elohim, and you shall guard my laws and do them. I am Yahuwah who kadush you.
I am Yahuwah who separates you. I am Yahuwah who separates you. There is no greater message being proclaimed than the greater separation. I am Yahuwah who separates you. Little one, I know this is not in them, but give them a little bit more understanding. Romans 8, verse 9. I am Yahuwah who separates you. He is the greater separation. It is the separated spirit, the separated Ruach, who separates us from death to life, from the destroyer to life. Romans 8, verse 9.
But you are not in the flesh, but in the Ruach, if indeed the Ruach of Elohim dwells in you.
Yes.
And if anyone does not have the Ruach of Mashiach,
yes,
this one is not his.
This one is not his. They are one. They are Akkad. They are one. They are one. Do you understand? They are one. There's one spirit. One Ruach. The Ruach HaKadosh is the Ruach of HaMashiach, Yahushua HaMashiach. It is he who separates us. He is the greater separation. He says, I will send you a helper. I'm going to send you a helper. I will not leave you orphan. The spirit of truth which the world does not know. He says, I will come to you. I will come to you. He is the greater separation, the separated spirit, the separated Ruach, who separates us from the rest. This ain't no new message. This is not some new thing. His people have always been separated. And as we read the Torah, it is Yahuwah who separates us by his separated spirit. He is the greater separation. He is no greater separation. So they can speak what they want. I proclaim Yahushua impaled and his blood spilled because of him, the life that poured out from him. And him ascending now, he has poured out his Ruach freely upon all who will receive him. I proclaim Yahushua. Am I a Christian? No, I'm a Christian. I'm a Torah keeper. But you can't keep the Torah unless the greater separation is in you. The living Torah is in you. Separation is not a new thing. His people has always been separated, but it is the separated spirit. It is the Ruach HaKadosh. It is Yahuwah. It is Yahushua who separates us. He is the greater separation. He is the stone laid in Zion. He is the stone that the builders have rejected, that has become the chief cornerstone. There is no greater message being proclaimed than, and those, his sheep, because he is the great shepherd, will hear his voice, and another voice they will not follow, and they will receive him. 144,000 worldwide are going to be sealed with the seal of the living Elohim in this season, and are going to be separated from destruction, from the destroyer that is coming soon upon the earth, and separated unto life upon Mount Zion. There is no greater message being proclaimed. Give us another precept, little one.
Genesis 12, 1 through 3.
Genesis chapter 12. Barashit, chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. We've learned now that the Mashiach did not come to bring peace, but a sword. He come to cause separation. He is the greater separation. He's come to bring separation. We've learned that this separation, this greater separation, this sword is nothing new, as we read Shamut, Exodus chapter 32. When those who are separated from the people, separated and ordained as a priesthood from the people, girded that dividing sword and went through the camp and destroyed all those who were contrary to the master, as the adversary is coming to do. We've learned now that he is the greater separation because he is the separated spirit who separates us. He is the separated spirit who separates us. He is the Ruach HaKadosh who separates us. But now, let's look at a little more history of our people to get an understanding that separation ain't nothing new. It's nothing new, that we've always been a separated people. We've always been a separated people. He will have it no differently. We've always been a separated people. We've always been those who have been taught how to make a distinction between the clean and the unclean, the righteous and the unrighteous, light and darkness. We've always been a separated people who've been told to come out from among them. Be ye separate, touch not the unclean thing, and he will receive us. But only 144,000 worldwide are hearing this in this season. Just in the nick of time before destruction, the sword comes upon this earth. Genesis chapter 12, Genesis Barashit chapter 12. What verses, little one?
1 through 3.
Verses 1 through 3. Barashit, Genesis chapter 12, verses 1 through 3. Beginning at verse 1, read, little one.
And Yahuwah said to Abram,
yes,
go yourself out of your land.
Go yourself out of your land. In other words, separate yourself, Abram. Read.
From your relatives.
From your who?
From your relatives.
If if you're tied to your relatives, it's too close and too tight, you're going to be like Lot's wife. Now, we've just read some precepts to show you that he did not come to bring peace, a shalom, but a sword. He gave us a testimony of that, a witness of that in Exodus chapter 32. Leave Abram. Separate yourself, Abram, from your relatives. Read.
And from your father's house.
And from your father's house.
To a land which I show you.
To a land that I show you.
And I shall make you a great nation.
And I shall make you a great nation.
And bless you and make your name great.
And bless you and barak you and make your name great.
And you shall be a blessing.
And you shall be a blessing.
And I shall bless those
who
bless you.
I shall bless those, barak those who bless you.
And curse him who curses you.
And curse him who curses you.
And in you all the clans of the earth shall be blessed.
And in you all the clans of the earth shall be blessed, shall be Baruch. Separation is not new. It began with our father Abram. With our father Abram after the great flood, and men began to spread upon the face of the earth. And Nimrod, came to power, and all the earth, all men worship him and would turn to evil and turn to rebellion, except for the house of Noah and Shem and Eber and Abraham. But through Abraham, he called them out of darkness. He called them out of the people of the Kasdim. He called them out of his relative's house, and he called them alone to a land that he would show him, to separate himself from all that is unclean. To separate yourself unto me. And he was alone for the most part. He walked alone. Abram walked alone. In separation and separateness. Separated unto the master. Separated unto the master. And a people, a great people, began with him. Come on, give us a precept, little one.
Numbers 23, 1 through 9.
Numbers chapter 23. Verses 1 through 9. Numbers chapter 23, verses 1 through 9. Numbers, chapter 23, verses 1 through 9. We've always been a separated people. We've always been a people alone. Don't think it's something strange. And in this season, what he wants you to understand that there's a greater separation occurring. And that greater separation is Yahushua HaMashiach. That greater separation is the Ruach HaKadosh, the separated Ruach, who is separating his people, sealing them with the seal of the living Elohim. The seal of the living Elohim is the Ruach HaKadosh. It's the separated spirit. But Numbers chapter 23, verses 1 through 9, beginning at verse 1. Read, little one.
And Balaam said to Balak,
read.
Build 7 slaughter places for me here. And prepare 7 bulls and 7 rams for me here. And Balak did as Balaam had spoken. And Balak and Balaam offered a bull and a ram on each slaughter place. Balaam then said to Balak, Stand by your ascending offering, and let me go on. It might be that Yahuwah does come to meet me, and whatever he shows me, I shall declare to you. And he went to a bare height, and Elohim came to Balaam, and he said to him, I have prepared the 7 slaughter places, and I have offered on each slaughter place a bull and a ram. And Yahuwah put a word in the mouth of Balaam and said, Return to Balak, and this is what you say. And he returned to him and saw him standing by his ascending offering, he and all the heads of Moab. And he took up his proverb and said, Balak, the sovereign of Moab, has brought me from Aram, from the mountains of the east. Come curse Yaakov for me, and come rage at Yasharal. How do I curse whom all has not cursed?
How do I curse whom all has not cursed? Read.
And how do I rage at whom Yahuwah has not raged?
How do I rage at whom Yahuwah has not raged? Read.
For from the top of the rocks I see him. And from the hills I observe him. Look, a people dwelling alone.
Look, a people dwelling alone.
Not reckoning itself among the nations.
Not reckoning itself among the nations. The next chapter, chapter 24, it says he will bless those who blesses him and curse those who curse him. These are the children of Abraham, who was called alone and separated from his relatives. separated from everything that he loved. He was separated from them, called to be separate, called to be clean, as our master is clean, to be kadosh, which means to be clean, which means to be separated from everything that is unclean. His covenant people are separated, have always been separated. This people we read here about in Numbers 23 was the whole house, the whole nation of Yasharal. This was all 12 tribes, and they were his covenant people. Now that covenant people is Judah, and as his covenant people, we are called to be alone, separated from every manner of uncleanness, every manner of wickedness, every unclean thing. Even the very appearance of wickedness, we are to separate ourselves from. Even if that means separating ourselves from relatives, close friends, brothers. You better take heed to this message, because there's a greater separation going on. Do not mourn when you see folks separated from you. Rejoice. He says, many are called, but few are chosen. Not many were called. Do not mourn. Do not mourn. There's a time of death that is coming upon this earth. And there's a greater separation that is occurring in the midst of this earth, even as I speak. His people, his covenant people, has always been separated. But this greater separation can only occur via the separated Ruach, via the separated spirit, Yahushua HaMashiach, the Ruach HaKadosh. Take heed. The greater separation has begun. The seal of the living Elohim is sealing his people, separating his people. But if he has indeed separated you, then you ought to bear fruit. You ought to have the very nature and character of Yahushua HaMashiach. You ought to have the very nature and character of your father, Yahuwah al-Shaddai. If you don't, you're not that good tree that he speaks of that cannot bear bad fruit. That's not you. And only a few, 144,000 in this season worldwide, are going to be that good tree, bearing good fruit, found well-doing, saved from the hour of trial that is soon to come upon this earth, brought to Mount Zion, given white robes of righteousness, waved before the Father as a wave offering, as first fruit, given a song that no one else can sing. Sent back to our land, where those who say they are Yahudim and are not, but are of the house, the synagogue of Hasatan, will come and worship before us. 144,000 worldwide separated covenant people during this season of a greater separation. Come on, give us another precept, little one.
Genesis 15, chapter 15.
Genesis chapter 15. We're still talking about separation now. How we've always been a separated people. How we see the beginning with Abram, and how we see now in Leviticus 20 that greater separation, that to be separated, that it is Yahuwah who separates us. Yahuwah and Yahushua are one. There is one Ruach HaKadosh. There is one Ruach of Mashiach, who is the Ruach HaKadosh. It is he who separates us. Let's look at this separation that he's talking about. Let's look closer at this greater separation that the master is talking about. Genesis Barashif chapter 15. Genesis Barashif chapter 15. Genesis Barashif chapter 15, beginning at verse 1. Read for us, little one.
After these events, the word of Yahuwah came to Abram in a vision, saying, Do not be afraid, Abram. I am your shield. Your reward is exceedingly great. And Abram said, Master Yahuwah, what will you give me, seeing I go childless? And the heir of my house is Eleazar of Damascus. And Abram said, See, you have given me no seed. And see, one born in my house is my heir. And see, the word of Yahuwah came to him, saying, This one is not your heir, but he who comes from your own body is your heir. And he brought him outside and said, Look now toward the heavens, and count the stars if you are able to count them. And he said to him, So are your seed. And he believed in Yahuwah, and he reckoned it to him for righteousness. And he said to him, I am Yahuwah, who brought you out of Kasdam to give you this land to inherit it. And he said, Master Yahuwah, Whereby do I know that I possess it? And he said to him, Bring me a 3-year-old heifer.
Listen here. Bring me a 3-year-old heifer. Read.
And a 3-year-old female goat.
And a 3-year-old female goat.
And a 3-year-old ram.
And a 3-year-old ram.
And a turtle dove.
And a turtle dove.
And a young pigeon.
And a young pigeon. Read.
And he took all these to him and cut them in the middle.
And he took all of these and he listened and he cut them in the middle. He separated them. Hear him? He separated them. He circumcised them. To circumcise means to split. It means to separate. It means to cut the skin. It means to split. It means to separate. Do you hear him? It means to separate. And he divided them. He separated them. He circumcised them. Oh, you're going to understand more clearly here momentarily. Read.
And he placed each half opposite the other. But he did not cut the birds.
Yes.
And the birds of prey came down on the carcasses.
Yes.
And Abram drove them away. And it came to be when the sun was going down, and a deep sleep fell upon Abram, that see, a frightening great darkness fell upon him. And he said to Abram, Know for certain that your seed are to be sojourners in a land that is not theirs, and shall serve them, and they shall afflict them for 400 years. But the nation whom they serve I am going to judge, and afterward let them come out with great possessions. Now as for you, you are to go to your fathers in Shalom. You are to be buried at a good old age. Then in the 4th generation they shall return here. For the crookedness of the Amorites is not yet complete. And it came to be when the sun went down and it was dark, that see a smoking oven and a burning torch passing between those pieces. On the same day Yahuwah made a covenant with Abram, saying, I have given this land to your seed, from the river of Matraim to the great river, river Euphrates, with the Canaites and the Canazites, and the Kadamites, and the Katites, and the Perizzites, and the Raphaim, and the Amorites, and the Canaites, and the Gargasites, and the Jabasites.
Barak Yahuwah, Barak Yahuwah. So the circumcise means to split, separate. It means to split or cut the skin, to separate. So this is a shadow of what the master is getting ready to do with Abram. Later in this chapter, he says, I have made an everlasting covenant with you. It is the circumcision that is a sign and a seal and a mark of the everlasting covenant between Yahuwah and his people. There are 3 signs. There is the sign of the circumcision. There is the sign of the Shabbat. And there is the sign of the blood. All three go back and are founded upon the blood, upon the dam. To circumcise, when you're circumcised, you bleed. It symbolizes death. Because to come to the Father and to enter into covenant with him, there must be death. There must be a separation from life to death. For one to enter into covenant with him, there must be death, because a covenant is not made permanent unless the covenant one dies. Thus there must be blood spilled. There must be death. There must be a separation from death to life. You must die to this wicked flesh. You must die. There must be a separation. There must be a cut. There must be a split, a circumcision, a divide, a separation, in order to be considered as covenant people. You must have no dealings with this flesh. You must have no dealings with this life. You got to be separated from this life. You got to die to this life and be renewed to the newness of life. And have the sign of the covenant upon you, the circumcision, to show now that you have been separated, that you are one of his separated people. Come on, little one, give us another precept.
Genesis 17.
Genesis chapter 17. Genesis, Barashit, chapter 17. Genesis, Barashit, chapter 17, beginning at verse 1. Read, little one.
And it came to be when Abram was 99 years old,
Read.
that Yahuwah appeared to Abram and said to him,
Read.
I am Al Shaddai.
Uh-huh.
Walk before me and be perfect.
And be perfect. Be tamim. Be perfect. Covenant people. Yahudim. Be perfect before him. This is how his separated people walk. Read.
And I give my covenant between me and you.
And I give my covenant between me and you. Come on.
And shall greatly increase you.
Yeah.
And Abram fell on his face.
Uh-huh.
And Elohim spoke with him, saying,
Yeah.
As for me, look,
Uh-huh.
my covenant is with you.
My covenant is with you. Read.
And you shall become a father of many nations.
And you shall become a father of many nations. Read.
And no longer is your name called Abram.
And no longer is your name called Abram.
But your name shall be Abraham.
But your name shall be Abraham.
Because I shall make you a father of many nations.
I shall make you a father of many nations. Read.
And I shall make you exceedingly fruitful.
Uh-huh.
And make nations of you.
Yes.
And sovereigns shall come from you.
Yes.
And I shall establish my covenant between me and you and your seed.
And your seed.
After you
After
in their
you.
generations.
Mm-hmm. Read.
For an everlasting covenant.
For an everlasting covenant. Read.
To be Elohim to you and your seed after you.
Uh-huh.
And I shall give to you and your seed after you the land of your sojournings,
Uh-huh.
all the land of Canaan as an everlasting possession,
Mm-hmm.
and I shall be their Elohim.
Mm-hmm.
And Elohim said to Abraham, As for you, guard my covenant,
Yes.
you and your seed after you throughout their generations.
Uh-huh.
This is my covenant which you guard between me and you,
Uh-huh.
and your seed after you.
Listen.
Every male child among you is to be circumcised.
He is to separate. There's to be a separation in him, a divide. And he is to bleed, symbolizing death, symbolizing the blood of the covenant. And now with this circumcision, as my covenant people now, you are being separated from death to life. Because my covenant people will live. My covenant people will live. You are now separated now from death to life. Are we talking about I want something that we can do ourselves? Oh, listen further. Listen further. But we're talking about a separation here. Being separated from death to life. You are to circumcise both yourself and your seed. In the example that we saw in Genesis 15, when there was a cut, when there was a divide. His covenant people, there's always been a separation between his covenant people. But Leviticus chapter 20 says, it is I, Yahuwah, who separates you, who divides you. Did it not say that, little one? It is I, Yahuwah, who separates you. We learn here that a separation is a circumcision. We just learned here that a separation, a divide, is a circumcision. So the master is saying now, it is I, Yahuwah, who circumcises you, who separates you, who divides you and makes you mine, my covenant people, and seals you with the seal of the living Elohim. Yes, it is. Yes, he does. Come on, read, little one.
And you shall circumcise the flesh of your foreskin, and it shall become a sign of the covenant between me and you. And a son of 8 days is circumcised by you, every male child in your generations. He who is born in your house or bought with silver from any foreigner who is not of your seed. He who is born in your house and he who is bought with your silver has to be circumcised. So shall my covenant be in your flesh.
So shall my covenant be in your flesh, that you are my separated people. Understand this, that you are my separated people, because a circumcision, to circumcise means to cut, to split, to divide. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. You are my separated people. But it is I, Yahuwah, who separates you. Come on, read, little one.
For an everlasting covenant.
Yes.
And an uncircumcised male child who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, his life shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant. And Elohim said to Abraham.
An uncircumcised child, does it say, little one?
Yes.
That's what it says, right? I read that again so they hear it.
Okay. An uncircumcised male child.
An uncircumcised male child. Male child. Read.
Who is not circumcised in the flesh of his foreskin, his life shall be cut off from his people. He has broken my covenant.
He has broken my covenant. We still circumcise our 8-day-old sons. You know this, Yahuwah's remnant. You know where he's going. We still circumcise our 8-day-old sons. An 8-day-old child, we must circumcise our children. We must still circumcise our children. This is further backed up in the 15th chapter of Acts and in the 21st chapter of Acts. We still circumcise our male children. But you also should know now that this circumcision here is a shadow. It is a shadow because it is Yahuwah who separates us. It is Yahuwah who separates, who circumcises us, and who separates us, who causes this cut, this split, this divide, whereby separating us and giving us a sign of the everlasting covenant. It is Yahuwah who separates us. The text declares it in Leviticus chapter 20. Yes, it does. Line upon line, precept upon precept. We've always been a separated people, but Yahushua is the greater separation. He is the greater separation that is separating his covenant people from the rest in this season and separating us from death unto life. Be careful. Take heed of who you're fellowshipping with in this season. Take heed, Yahuwah, of who you are fellowshipping with in this season, during this season of a greater separation. Have your eyes attuned because there's a greater separation going on. His true people, his true covenant people are separated, and there's a bunch of folly and foolishness going forth in the earth. Be careful who you give ear to. If they ain't talking about Yahushua, the greater separation, if they're not talking about this, if they're not raising up Yahushua, lifting him up to draw all men unto him, they're not his covenant people. Take heed lest you be led to the valley of oh no, whether or not they're relatives or not, son or daughter, sister or brother, mother or father. Take heed in this season of a greater separation. It will not proceed for long. Once he has sealed the number of his people, once he has separated the number of his people, once he has circumcised the number of his people, he will seal no more until he splits the sky and comes back. And a great throne will come back, and he will sprinkle clean water on them and remove the heart of stone and replace it with a heart of flesh. And he will put his Ruach in them to circumcise them and cause them to keep his commandments. Not until then will that occur. But for now, when the number of those who are to be separated have been separated, or circumcised has been accomplished. He will circumcise no more. And thus the messenger in Revelation 7 is holding back the four winds, not allowing the earth to be harmed, or the trees or the grass to be harmed, until he has sealed the number of his people upon their foreheads, until he has separated them. Until the greater separation has been accomplished, until they have been circumcised, until they have been split, cut, divided from the rest. And if they are indeed his covenant people, they will act like so, because they will have the very nature and character of Yahuwah al-Shaddai. They will have the very nature and character of Yahushua. If it don't look like him, it's wrong. I think we're 2 Timothy, little one.
Exodus 12, 48 to 49.
I'm sorry, Barak Yahuwah. I'm getting ahead of you.
It's all right.
I'm getting ahead of you. Barak Yahuwah. Exodus now, chapter 12, Shamut, chapter 12. We've always been a separated people, and there's a mark of separation on us. Either there's a visible mark, or that mark is seen through our nature and our character. It's seen through our actions and our inactions. It's seen through our words. There's a visible separation upon us, because his people has always been a separated people, a people who makes a distinction between the clean and the unclean, a people who know the will and the desire of Yahuwah, because they have his Ruach who knows his will and his desire. No one knows the mind of the man but the Ruach of the man, and we know the mind of Yahuwah because we have the Ruach of Yahuwah. Shamut, Exodus chapter 12, verses what, little one?
48 and 49. Verses
48 and 49. Here now, there, Exodus 12, that was a separation, was it not? Yes, there was. A separation from death into life. There was salvation from the destroyer who came, and that separation occurred via the blood, via the dung. Don't we bleed when we're circumcised, little one? Yes, we do. That separation occurred via shed blood, the blood of the lamb that was applied upon the doorpost, and they were saved from death. They were saved from the destroyer, and they were brought into life, brought into his marvelous light. So this has just now occurred in Exodus, in the earlier verses of Exodus. Now we're here at verses 48 and 49 of the same chapter. Beginning at verse 48, read, little one.
And when a stranger sojourns with you and shall perform the Pesach to Yahuwah,
Yeah.
let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and perform it.
Yes.
And he shall be as a native of the land.
Yeah.
But let no uncircumcised eat of it.
Yes.
There is one Torah for the native born.
One Torah for the native born.
And for the stranger
And for the stranger who sojourns among you. So now, Pesach is to remind us of our deliverance from bondage and slavery, our deliverance from death, our deliverance from darkness. It is to remind us that we have been separated from the kingdom of darkness and brought into his marvelous light as his covenant people. But if a stranger desires to keep this feast and recollect and remember what this feast is all about, he too got to be separated, little one. He too got to be separated. He got to have a visible mark of separation. There's got to be a cut, a split, a divide, a separation in him. Because only those who were separated escape death. So if you want to keep this feast, and we keep this feast daily, yes we do. If you want to keep this feast, stranger, you got to be separated. There's got to be a circumcision. There's got to be a cut, a split, a separation. You've got to be amongst this separated people who have always been separated from the rest. Who have always been separated from the Gentiles who are destined for death because they are under the power of the prince of the power of the air. They are destined for death. We've always been separated from them. He's always called the people alone, starting with Abram, passing down the Itzchak and Yaakov, Yahushua and Ephraim. We've always been a separated people. It's always been about separation. But there's a greater separation going on, and it is Yahuwah who separates us. It is the circumcision, the split, the cut, the divide that separates his people, that visible sign, a seal, and a mark of the everlasting covenant between Yahuwah and his people. It is the circumcision, that separation that separates us from the nations. It is Yahuwah who separates us. He is the greater separation. Yahushua HaMashiach, Yahuwah, and Yahushua are one. Are one. Give us a precept, little one.
2 Timothy chapter 3.
2 Timothy chapter 3. 2 Timothy chapter 3. This is a warning. We're still talking about a greater separation, but in the mindset of that greater separation, understand where we're at and understand that you're going to have to be separate. And that separate is going to cause pain because if you're truly his separated people, then you're going to separate yourself from son and daughter, sister and brother, mother and father, cousin, nephew, close friend. As the Louis had to go to that camp and slay all those folk. In this season, during the greater separation, there's going to be some pain. There's going to be some sorrow. Count up the cost right now because it's very expensive. It's very expensive. The other alternative is death. The only other alternative is death. Understand, we are being separated from death, from the hands of the destroyer to life. The destroyer, death, manifested in flesh, is coming to this earth very soon. And this greater separation is separating us from his hands, from death to life. And there are those who are of the adversary, who are pawns of his, whom he is using as pawns to distract us, to cause us to become unfocused and to lure us into the valley of oh no, where we will be declaring, oh no. How do we end up here? How did I end up off of the track? Why did I walk off the track before the final cut was done? Hear his words. Hear his words and understand the greater separation. 2 Timothy chapter 3, beginning at verse 1. Read, little one.
But know this.
Yes.
That in the last days hard times shall come. For men shall be lovers of self,
Yeah.
lovers of silver,
Mm-hmm.
boasters, proud,
Mhm.
blasphemers,
Mhm.
disobedient to parents, thankless,
Mhm.
wrongdoers,
Yes.
unloving,
Yes.
unforgiving, slanderers,
Yeah.
without self-control,
Yeah.
fierce,
Yeah.
haters of good,
Mhm.
betrayers,
Yeah.
reckless,
Yeah.
puffed up,
Uh-huh.
lovers of pleasure
Yeah.
rather than lovers of Elohim, having a form of reverence,
Having a form of reverence, read.
but denying its power,
But denying its power, read.
and turn away from these.
Turn away from these, Yahudah.
For among them are those who creep into households and captivate silly women, loaded down with sin, led away by various lusts.
Turn away from these, Yahudah. Turn away from these. These are those who are always learning and never coming to the truth. They are always learning and never coming to the truth. They are always learning and never coming to the truth, Yahudah, because they are not separated. If they were separated, they would have the spirit of truth. They would have the Ruach of truth. But they're always learning and never coming to the truth. Thus, there's all kinds of folly and falsehood and foolishness and wickedness that is being promulgated in this season. Beware and be leery of them, lest you be lured into the valley of oh no with them. There is a greater separation going on. Use discernment, and if you do not have discernment, pray for it, and the master will give it to you. They're always learning, but never coming to the truth, because they have not the spirit of truth. Avoid them. Turn away from such as these. Turn away from such as these. Come on, give us a precept, little one.
We got Colossians chapter 2.
Colossians chapter 2. The master's going somewhere with this. Colossians chapter 2. I know nothing but Yahushua and Peel. We proclaim him, we lift him up. And if we lift him up, all men shall be drawn to him through us. And perhaps they too will be a part of this greater separation. For it is Yahuwah who separates us. Yahuwah and Yahushua are one. But it is Yahuwah who put on flesh and came to this earth and shed his blood for us in the person of Yahushua HaMashiach. Do not allow anyone to tell you anything different. To tell you anything different is to diminish the work that the Father himself has done for us. Yahushua and Yahuwah are one. Colossians 2. It is Yahuwah who separates us. Beware of those. Beware of those of whom we just read about in 2 Timothy chapter 3. Beware of those. The more that there are many things, many characteristics that were read, but I want to draw your attention to those that are always learning in this season in which knowledge has exploded and many are learning different things and they're making their boast in knowledge, Yahudah. But they're never coming to the truth because the spirit of truth, the Ruach of truth, is far from them. They are those who are separated amongst the multitudes and not amongst the remnant. You're going to have to make a choice. You're going to have to count up the cost. It's very expensive. Colossians chapter 2, beginning at verse 1. Read, little one.
For I wish you to know what a great struggle I have for you and those in Laodicea, and for as many as have not seen my face in the flesh, in order that their hearts might be encouraged, being knit together in love, and to all riches of the entire, confirmation of understanding, to a true knowledge of the secret of Elohim, and of the Father and of the Mashiach, in whom are hidden all the treasures of wisdom and knowledge. And this I say, so that no one deceives you with enticing words. For though I am absent in the flesh, yet I am with you in Ruach.
So that no one deceives you with enticing words, Yahudah. Read.
Rejoicing to see your good order and the steadfastness of your belief in Mashiach. Therefore, as you accepted Mashiach, Yahushua, the Master, walk in him, having been rooted and built up in him, and established in the belief as you were taught, overflowing in it with thanksgiving, seeing to it that no one makes a prey of you through
That no one makes a prey of you through philosophy, through everything that is contrary to Torah. Read.
and empty deceit,
And empty deceit,
according to the tradition of men,
according to the tradition of men. Read.
according to the elementary matters of the world,
According to the elementary matters of the world, according to this beast system of paganism. Read.
and not according to Mashiach.
And not according to Mashiach. Read.
Because in him dwells all the completeness of Elohimness, bodily, and you have been made complete in him.
And you have been made complete in him. You have been separated in him. Read.
Who is head of all principality and
Yes.
authority. In him you are also circumcised.
In him, listen, you are also circumcised. Read.
With a circumcision not made with hands.
With a circumcision not made with hands.
In the putting off of the body of the sins of the flesh.
And the putting off of the body of the sins of the flesh.
By the circumcision of Mashiach.
By the circumcision of Mashiach. Read.
Having been buried with him in immersion.
Having been buried with him in immersion.
In which you also were raised with him through the belief in the working of Elohim. Who raised him from the dead.
You stop right there for now. Put your finger right there. Put your finger right there. The Torah says it is Yahuwah who separates us. It is Yahuwah who circumcises us and who causes this split, this divide, this separation of one not made with hands. One not made with hands. It reads in the Torah, if you have eyes to see, one not made with hands. It is Yahuwah who separates us, who divides us, who makes the circumcision. Not one made with hands. In accordance with the Torah, a circumcision is required. We saw it in the Torah. To divide, to separate. A circumcision is required in order to separate us as his people. Yes, it is. In accordance with the Torah. A circumcision is required. But we're not talking here now about a circumcision made with hands, because Yahuwah said, it is I who separate you. It is I who separate you. This circumcision, not made with hands, it goes all the way back to the beginning with Adam and Kua. It goes all the way back to mankind, to the redemption of mankind, of which this is all about. All the way back to the very beginning when they were naked and they partook of the fruit, and then they knew they were naked because the Torah reveals all uncleanness. It reveals your nakedness. When they transgressed the Torah, they understood that they were naked. Indeed, an uncircumcised man is considered to be naked. He is considered to be unclean. As an uncircumcised man is more susceptible to uncleanness getting inside of him, he is more susceptible to infection. An uncircumcised man is also able to pull the skin back and to maneuver the skin back upon the penis, exposing the nakedness underneath. Whereas a circumcised man, once there has been a split, a cut, and a divide, and that split and that cut and that divide is healed, the skin then grows back in such a way to cover the nakedness, so as to prevent the man now from pulling the skin back and exposing the nakedness underneath. Nakedness is uncleanness. Nakedness is uncoveredness. Nakedness is reminiscent of sin, of uncleanness. Nakedness is unrighteousness. It is unrighteousness. Thus, those who are not clothed, who are nakedness, who are naked, are thought to be unrighteous, are thought to be unclean. And so Adam and Kua knew that they were naked, and they were ashamed, as the text declares. And they went and they formed fig leaves for themselves, and they went and they hid themselves. And Yahuwah, walking in the cool of the day, asked where they were. You know the story. They revealed then where they were, and they revealed why they were hiding. And the woman blamed it. Adam blamed it on the woman for partaking of the fruit, and the woman blamed it on the serpent. And we know the rest, that there was some judgments there that were proclaimed, that our woman, that serpent, to the dust you go, you shall lick the dust all your days. And man shall crush your head, and you shall crush his heel. Woman, and pain shalt thou bring forth children, and your desire shall be for your husband, and he does now rule over you. Man, from now on, you're going to work the soil, you're going to till it, you're going to work until the soil you return from the dust you came in, and to the dust you shall return. And so now it is ordained that, woman, you are to submit to your husband. Husband, you are to work, you are to provide for your wife. What are you to provide, husband? You are her master now, but you also are her provider. And as a provider, husband, in accordance with the Torah, you now have to provide her food, her clothing, her marital rights, and her shelter. You've got to provide these things in accordance with the Torah. And so the master now, after Adam and Kua had committed crime, and he said, the day that you partake of this fruit is the day that you will die. He then, this day, separated them from death and brought them into life. How so? There was a slaughtering. There was the shedding of blood. In order that they would live, that something else, something innocent would die in their place. And he separated them from death to life. Not only that, but he renewed the everlasting covenant with them when he covered their nakedness with skin. As a circumcised man, the skin of a circumcised man covers his nakedness. He fashioned skins for them. The circumcision not made with hands, he fashioned skins for them, and he covered their shame, and he covered their nakedness, and he clothed them as a good husband does. He clothed them as a good husband does. He covered their shame, he covered their nakedness, and thus the covenant was renewed. The covenant is renewed in us when, as a husband enters into covenant with a woman, when he knows her, when he enters into a covenant with her and a soul tie with her, and as a man enters a virgin, and the hymen is split, the hymen is divided, the hymen is separated, and she bleeds, and there's a circumcision in her, and he enters into covenant with her. And as her husband, he then what? He then clothes her. He clothes her nakedness. He clothes her shame. He covers her. In the same way, when that circumcision not made with hands it occurs in us, the Ruach HaKadosh, the greater separation, Yahushua HaMashiach, our husband, Yahuwah in flesh, our husband, enters us as a man enters a woman. And then he proceeds to circumcise that wicked heart. There is a split, there is a cut, there is a divide, and he claims you as his own. Separating you from the heathen, and separating you unto himself, separating you from death unto life. When he enters you and circumcises your heart, giving you that circumcision not made with hands. And as the text declares then, he clothes your heart. He then removes the shame and the degradation and the bondage of Egypt. He removes all of those wicked memories that you had. He removes the shame of the nakedness that you were in. When he circumcises your wicked heart via the Ruach HaKadosh, and he covers your shame, he covers your nakedness, and enters into an everlasting covenant with you. Yahushua is the greater separation, who circumcises us, causing that divide, dividing us as his people. It is Yahuwah who separates us. It is the Ruach HaKadosh, it is Yahushua who separates us via the circumcision, via the split, via the divide. It is Yahuwah who separates us. And very few authentically have a circumcised heart, who have that split, that cut, that divide of the heart, whereby separating us, as we've always been a separated people, separating us unto life, separating us unto himself. And in this season, a greater separation is going on as he is sealing his people with the seal of the living Elohim, entering into covenant with them as a man enters a woman and making that circumcision of the heart, causing that separation, that divide, and claiming us as his own, sealing us for deliverance and saving us from the hour of trial, which is soon to come upon the earth. Yahushua is the greater separation. He is our husband. He is the one who enters us and circumcises the heart. That circumcision must be one not made with hands, because it is the desire of Yahuwah to reconcile all mankind back into covenant with him. Male and female, he created them as he clothed both Adam and Kua with skin and covered both of their nakedness. He desires to enter into covenant with all mankind, male and female. He created them. Not only males are going to Mount Zion, but females who have the circumcision, the divide, the separation, the split, the cut of the heart are also going to Mount Zion. Very few in this season take heed. Take heed in this season of the greatest separation. Let no one steal your prize, as we're getting ready to read. Let no one steal your prize with vain philosophy and deceit. There's much folly that's being proclaimed in this season, much untruth, much falsehood, much foolishness that is being proclaimed in this season. Don't let them fool you and lure you into the valley of oh no, where you will be declaring, oh no, how did I end up here? Acknowledge the greater separation that is going on and pray that you are part of that greater separation via the mark of that greater separation, the circumcision, separating us, making that split, that cut, that divide, that separation, separating us from uncleanness and wickedness and from the Gentiles, the nations, separating us from all manner of uncleanness, separating us from death to life, from the destroyer to life, having the blood, there's a circumcision, thus having the blood applied upon us. Keep reading, little one.
And you being dead in your trespasses and the uncircumcision of your flesh,
yes,
he is made alive together with him, having forgiven you all trespasses, having blotted out that which was written by hand against us.
The judgment, the decree of death, having blotted it out, provided that you have died with him via the immersion, provided that you have been immersed in his name and have been buried. To be immersed into the name of Yahushua means to be impaled with him and to be buried with him and to be resurrected to the newness of life, to receive the newness of life, the Ruach HaKadosh, the greater separation, who separates us, the separated Ruach, who separates the heart, who cuts, who splits, who divides, who circumcises the heart. Provided that this has occurred, he has forgiven you and entered into covenant with you and claimed you as one of his own, and in this season sealed you with the seal of the living Elohim, giving you a hope and an expectation. Yahushua in us, the expectation of esteem. Read, little one.
By the dogmas which stood against us, and he has taken it out of the way, having nailed it to the stake, having stripped the principalities and the authorities. He made a public display of them, having prevailed over them in it. Let no one therefore judge you in eating or drinking.
Listen. Here's some folly. Here's some folly that's being proclaimed. Now, let no one judge you in eating. Now, the KJV actually is more accurate in this translation, and so is the Greek. And we're going to get to this. The KJV is more accurate in this because it says here, let no one judge you in meats. Let no one judge you in meats. There is lots of foolishness and tomfoolery going about across the whole of the earth, talking about we should not eat meat, talking about it's wicked, it's evil, that we should not be eating meat, thus fulfilling the words of Paul, the prophecy spoken through him. Abstaining from meats and forbidding to marriage. These are those who are forever learning, always learning, but never coming into the truth because they lack the spirit of truth. They do not have the spirit of truth. The Torah does not forbid the eating of meats. Do not listen to them. It's okay if they don't want to eat meat. That's fine. Go somewhere and shut up and eat a vegetable sandwich. But do not try to proclaim this and push this on his people. This is falsehood. Not many of you should become teachers, knowing that you shall receive a stricter judgment. Do not listen to those who judge you for eating meat. Read, little one.
Or in respect of a festival.
Or in respect of a festival of an appointed time. Read.
Or a new moon or Shabbat.
Or of a new month or of a Shabbat. Let no one judge you for doing these things. Read.
Which are a shadow of what is to come.
Which are a shadow of what is to come. We understand now that the master's redemption plan is hidden within his appointed times. It is hidden within his new months and the Shabbat. His delivery, his appointed plan of deliverance is hidden within his feast days. Come on, read, little one.
But the body of Mashiach.
Yes.
Let no one deprive you of the prize.
Let no one, Yahuwah, deprive you of the prize. There's a greater separation going on. Let no one deprive you of the prize. Read.
Who takes delight in false humility and worship of messengers.
Yes.
Taking his stand on what he has not seen.
Yes.
Puffed up by his fleshly mind.
Yes.
And not holding fast to the head, from whom all the body nourished and knit together.
Yahushua, HaMashiach, I know nothing but Yahushua, HaMashiach, him impaled. I lift him up to draw all men unto him. Read.
By joints and ligaments, grows with the growth of Elohim. If then you die with Mashiach from the elementary matters of the world, why, as though living in the world, do you subject yourself to dogmas?
Why do you subject yourself to dogmas, the commandments of men? Torah declares you can eat meat. Read.
Do not touch.
Do not touch. Torah declares that we can eat meat. Why do you subject yourself to this foolishness? Read.
Do not taste.
Do not taste. Why do you subject yourself to this foolishness? Read.
Do not handle.
Do not handle. Why do you subject yourself to this foolishness? Read.
Which are all to perish.
Which are all to perish with
use according to the commands.
According to the commands and teachings of men. This is not Torah. Torah declares that we can eat, partake of meat. This is foolishness, Yahuwah. Do not listen to them. It's okay if they want to do this. That's fine. Go somewhere, as previously mentioned, and go somewhere privately, eat your vegetable sandwich, and just be quiet. Shut up. And let us guard the Torah as we walk in the spirit of truth. As the truth has been revealed to us through Yahushua HaMashiach, who has taught us the way of salvation. Stay to your vegetable sandwich, but leave us be as we guard the Torah and Ruach in truth. Come on, read, little one.
These indeed have an appearance of wisdom in self-imposed worship, humiliation, and harsh treatment of the body, of no value at all, only for satisfaction of the flesh.
Always learning, but never coming into the truth. Avoid, turn away from such as these. Give us another precept.
We got Matthew 11:18 to 19.
Matthew 11. Matthew 11. Master's been proclaiming. We proclaim Yahushua here. We follow Yahushua here. If it don't look like Yahushua, it's wrong. If it does not look like him, it's wrong. He is the greater separation. This is being spoken because there's some foolishness being taught in this season as the greater separation continues. He is the greater separation. He is the Ruach HaKodesh. It is he who separates us. It is he who splits and separates and divides the heart, whereby circumcising it, whereby separating us into covenant with him. Matthew 11, what verse, little one?
18 to 19.
Verses 18 and 19. Matthew 11, verses 18 and 19. Beginning at verse 18, read, little one.
For Yahuwah came neither eating nor drinking.
Listen, for Yahuwah came neither eating or drinking.
And they say he has a demon.
And they say he has a demon. Listen.
The son of Adam came eating and drinking.
The son of Adam came eating and drinking.
And they say, see a man a glutton.
And they say, see a man a glutton.
And a wine drinker.
And a wine drinker.
A friend of tax collectors.
A friend of tax collectors.
And sinners.
And sinners. I don't know about no one else, little one, but I'm going to follow him. I'm going to follow my master. He is the author and the finisher of my belief. He is the greater separation. I don't know about anybody else, but I'm going to follow him. Quit speaking words in my ear. I hear from him. I follow his voice, and another voice I will not follow. He came eating meat and drinking, and I will follow him. I will follow his example. Eating meat is not wicked. It is Torah. Come on, little one, give us a definition of that glutton in the Greek.
Phago.
Phago. Phago. What does phago mean, little one?
Primary verb used as an alternative in certain tenses to eat meat.
Eat meat. He came eating meat, and they called him a glutton. If meat is good enough for my master, it's good enough for me. Eat your vegetable sandwich all you want, but shut up. Don't teach this as fact or truth. It is far from the truth. Forever learning but never coming to the truth. And you don't have the truth because the Ruach of truth is not there. He will not lead you in any folly like that. Whoever this applies to, Teshuvah, repent before it is too late. Teaching this falsehood. Come on, give us another priesthood, a little precept.
Sirach 37:29-31.
Sirach chapter 37. What verses?
29-31.
29-31. Go ahead and read, little one.
Be not unsatiable in any dainty thing.
Yes.
Nor too greedy upon meats.
Nor too greedy upon meat. To be greedy is to be gluttonous. They accuse the Mashiach of being gluttonous. Gluttonous is associated with eating meat. It is associated with the eating of meat, and they accuse them of being gluttonous. Nor be too greedy of eating meat. Read.
For excess of meat brings sickness.
Yes.
And surfeiting will turn into color.
Yes.
By surfeiting have many perished, but he that takes heed prolongs his life.
Barak Yahuwah. I choose to follow him. I choose to be a part of the greater separation. I choose to hear his voice, and another voice I will not follow. I advise you, Yahuwah, to do the same in this season of the greater separation when all this tomfoolery and foolishness is being proclaimed in the earth. His sheep hear his voice, and another voice they will not follow. A greater separation is occurring. Come on, little one.
Exodus 29:1-13.
Exodus now, we're almost done. Exodus chapter 29. Take heed, the greater separation has begun. The destroyer comes. Take heed, the greater separation has begun. The destroyer comes. The destroyer comes. Take heed, the greater separation has begun. The destroyer comes. Many are called, few are chosen. Not all will come. Do not mourn. Do not mourn. Exodus chapter 29, Shamut, chapter 29, verses
1-13.
1-13. Beginning at verse 1. Read, little one.
And this is a task you shall do to them to kadosh me to serve as priests. Take 1 young bull and 2 rams, perfect ones, and unleavened bread and unleavened cakes mixed with oil, and unleavened wafers anointed with oil. Make these of wheat flour, and you shall put them in 1 basket, and bring them in the basket along with the bull and the 2 rams. Then you shall bring Aharon and his sons to the door of the tent of appointment, and wash them with water. And you shall take the garments and shall put on Aharon the long shirt, and the robe of the shoulder garment, and the shoulder garment, and the breastplate, and shall gird him with the embroidered band of the shoulder garment, and shall put the turban on his head, and shall put the kadosh sign of dedication on the turban, and shall take the anointing oil and pour it on his head, and anoint him. Then you shall bring his sons and put long shirts on them, and shall gird them with girdles, Aharon and his sons, and put the turbans on them, and the priesthood shall be theirs for an everlasting law. So you shall ordain Aharon and his sons.
The priesthood of Louis, which represents the priesthood of Melchizedek, shall be an everlasting priesthood unto them. Hear him, listen.
And you shall bring near the bull before the tent of appointment, and Aharon and his sons shall lay their hands on the head of the bull, and you shall slay the bull before Yahuwah by the door of the tent of appointment, and take some of the blood of the bull, and put it on the horns of the slaughter place with your finger, and pour all the blood beside the base of the slaughter place. And you shall take all the fat that covers the entrails.
Listen, and you shall take all of the fat that covers the entrails. The fat where all the toxins and that which is unclean is stored in the body. You shall take this fat which stores the toxins and uncleanness and put it where?
And the appendage on the liver and the 2 kidneys.
And the 2 kidneys, which also store toxins. Read.
And the fat that is on them.
And the fat that is on them.
And burn them on the slaughter place.
And burn them on the slaughter place. These are unclean meats that the priest does not eat. That the priest does not partake of. Hear him. These are unclean meats according to the Torah that the priest does not take part of, because these things contain toxins and uncleanness. They store and process the toxins and the uncleanness in the body, and these are to be wholly consumed on the fire. They're not to be eaten, but part of the animal is the priest's portion. Part of it is his portion to eat, but these he does not eat. This is the unclean portion that he does not eat. The master is going somewhere. We're still talking about a greater separation. Read.
That was it. 1 through 15.
Barak Yahuwah, give us another precept.
Numbers 18, 1 through 20.
Numbers chapter 18. Bamatba chapter 18 verses 1 through 20. Bamatba chapter 18 verses 1 through 20. Bamatba chapter 18 verses 1 through 20. His covenant people are clean. We are clean. We are perfect. We have been separated unto righteousness. There is a circumcision, a divide, a cut, a split. It is Yahuwah who separates via the separated Ruach. This is his covenant people, and we're separated unto cleanness, separated from unrighteousness. We are a priesthood. We partake of nothing unclean. And as the priesthood, being a shadow of Melchizedek, did not partake of the unclean meat here, but partook of the clean portion of the clean animal. We are to partake of that which is clean. But I draw your attention now that they, the priesthood, that we, the nation of Yasharal, which is a priesthood in the order of Melchizedek, the priesthood, the Kahana, in the order of Louis, being a shadow of the priesthood, the Kahana, in the order of Melchizedek, was sent in the Torah. It's written in the Torah to teach us deeper spiritual matters. Behold, a great separation is occurring in the midst of us. Numbers chapter 18 verses 1 through 20. Beginning at verse 1, read, little one.
And Yahuwah said to Aharon,
Yes.
You and your sons and your father's house with you are to bear the crookedness against the Kadush place. And you and your sons with you are to bear the crookedness against your priesthood. But bring with you your brothers of the tribe of Lewi too, the tribe of your father, to join you and serve you while you and your sons are with you before the tent of witness. And they shall guard your charge and the duty of all the tent. But they do not come near the furnishings of the Kadush place and the slaughter place, lest they die, both they and you. And they shall be joined with you and guard the duty to the tent of appointment for all the service of the tent. But a stranger does not come near you. And you shall guard the duty of the Kadush place and the duty of the slaughter place, so that there be no more wrath on the children of Yasharal. And see, I myself have taken your brothers the Lewites from the midst of the children of Yasharal, a gift to you given by Yahuwah, to do the service of the tent of appointment. But you and your sons with you are to guard your priesthood for all matters at the slaughter place.
Hear him. He's coming back for a priesthood. 144,000. He's coming back for a priesthood, a separated people. He's coming back for a priesthood. Not only is he coming back for a priesthood, and we need to understand the example here, but he's coming back for something else. Come on, read.
And behind the veil you shall serve. I have given you the priesthood as a gift for service. But the stranger who comes near is put to death. And Yahuwah spoke to Aharon, and see, I myself has also given you the charge of my contributions. I
have also given you the charge of my contributions from the offerings. Read.
All the Kadush gifts of the children of Yasharal.
Read.
I have given them to you for the anointing.
I have given them to you for the anointing, the anointing of the priesthood of the Kahana. Read.
And to your sons as a law forever.
And unto your sons as a law forever. Read.
This is yours, the most Kadush gifts from the fire.
This is yours, the most Kadush gifts from the fire. Read.
All their offerings, all their grain offerings, and all their sin offerings, and all their guilt offerings.
But not but not the liver, the kidney, and the fat. This is unclean. This is not their portion. This is to be destroyed. This is not their portion. Read.
Which they render to me are kadosh for you and your sons.
Mm-hmm.
Eat it in the most kadosh place.
Mm-hmm.
Every male eats it.
Mm-hmm.
It is kadosh to you.
Mm-hmm.
This also is yours.
Mm-hmm.
The contribution of their gift
Mm-hmm.
with all the wave offerings
Mm-hmm.
of the children of Yasharal.
All the wave offerings from the children of Yasharal. Read.
I have given them to you.
I've given them to you.
And your sons and daughters with you.
And the sons and the daughters with you.
As a law forever.
As a law forever. Read.
Everyone who is clean in your house eats it.
Everyone who is clean in your house eats of it. Read.
All the best of the oil.
All the best of the oil.
And all the best of the new wine.
All the best of the new wine. Revelation 6. Read.
And the grain.
And the grain.
Their first fruits.
Their first fruits.
Which they give to Yahuwah.
Their first fruits. Their first fruits. Their first fruits. Which they give unto Yahuwah. Read.
I have given them to you.
I have given them to you.
The first fruits of all that is in their land.
The first fruits that is all that is in their land.
Which they bring to Yahuwah.
Which they bring unto Yahuwah.
Are yours.
Are yours.
Everyone who is clean in your house.
Everyone who is clean in your house.
Eats it.
Eats it.
All that is dedicated in Yasharal is yours.
All that is dedicated in Yasharal is yours.
Everyone opening a womb of all flesh.
Everyone opening a womb of all flesh.
Which they bring to Yahuwah.
Which they bring to Yahuwah.
Whether man or beast.
Whether man or beast.
Is yours.
Is yours.
But to ransom you shall ransom the firstborn of man.
Mm-hmm.
And the firstborn of the unclean beast you ransom.
You shall redeem, in other words, you shall redeem the firstborn of man and the firstborn of unclean animals. Read.
And ransom their ransom ones when one new month old according to your valuation, 5 shekels of silver, according to the shekel of the kadosh place, which is 20 gerahs. But the firstborn of a cow, or the firstborn of a sheep, or the firstborn of a goat, you do not ransom. They are kadosh. Sprinkle their blood on the slaughter place.
They are separated. Sprinkle their blood on the slaughter place. Read.
And burn their fat as an offering made by fire for a sweet fragrance to Yahuwah. And their flesh is yours. As the wave breast and as the right thigh it is yours. All the contributions of the kadosh gifts which the children of Yasharal present to Yahuwah, I have given to you and your sons and daughters with you as a law forever.
As a law forever. Read.
It is a covenant of salt before Yahuwah.
It is a covenant of salt before Yahuwah.
With you and your seed with you. And Yahuwah said to Aharon, you are not to have an inheritance in their land, nor have any portion in their midst. I am your portion and your inheritance among the children of Yasharal.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. Yahuwah, we'll start from the bottom, looking at this. Yahuwah is our portion. If you are a priesthood of the priesthood of Melchizedek, and which the Levitical priesthood of Kahanah represented, and the high priest who being a representation of Melchizedek himself, Yahuwah, Yahushua, HaMashiach, having no beginning and having no end. And so there's a shadow here. There's a shadow. The priests are given a portion. The Kahanah, the priesthood, is given a portion from the people. The first fruits from the land belong to them. And the portions from the offerings, they belong to them. They are theirs for their service. For their service, the clean portions of the offering of the meat, it belongs to them. Now, we're not going to talk no more about meat. But the clean portions of the meat, it belonged to them. But we read where the kidneys and the liver and the fat, you are to offer these because this is unclean. You don't eat this. This is where the toxins and the unclean matters of the body are processed and stored. So you do not eat this. But the clean portions of the animal, of the offerings and the first fruits, they belong to you, to the priesthood, to the high priest. They belong to you. Again, he is a shadow of our high priest, Yahushua HaMashiach, Yahuwah Melchizedek. Our sovereign is righteous. Come on, give us another precept, little one.
Ezekiel 28:12-14.
Ezekiel chapter 28. We're still talking now about a greater separation. He's coming for a priesthood. He's coming for a separated priesthood who have a higher standard of separation. A good priest governs his home well. A good priest governs his home well. A good priest adheres to the Torah, that he will not marry someone who is unclean. He will not unequally yoke himself to anyone. A good priest adheres to the Torah and governs and rules his house well. And if he governs and rules his house well, having a like-minded spouse, a like-minded Aisha, then they both in this season, having been separated, having received the split, the cut, the separation of the circumcision, both will go to Mount Zion. Both will go to Mount Zion, where only in the 144,000 of men are counted. Let's look at something else here, however, doing this greater separation as he's coming for a priesthood. Ezekiel chapter 28. Ezekiel, Yahushua, chapter 28. Ezekiel, Yahushua, chapter 28. What verses, little one?
12 to 14.
Verses 12 through 14. Verses 12 through 14. Understand something. Yahuwah acknowledges legal rights. He does. He acknowledges legal rights. He must. He acknowledges legal rights, and he will not go where Hashatan has a legal right to be. Let's get some understanding. Ezekiel 28, Yahushua chapter 28, verses 14, verses 12 through 14. Beginning at verse 12, read, little one.
Son of man, take up limitation for the sovereign of Zur.
Listen.
And you shall say to him, Thus saith the Master Yahuwah.
Thus says the Master Yahuwah.
You were sealing up a pattern.
You were sealing up a pattern, read.
Complete in wisdom.
Complete in wisdom.
And perfect in loveliness.
And perfect in loveliness.
You were in Adon.
You were in Adon, or in Eden, read.
The garden of Elohim.
The garden of Elohim, read.
Every precious stone was your covering.
Every precious stone was your covering. The precious stones that covered the breastplate of the priest. The precious stones that covered, that identified a high priest. The breastplate of a high priest. Every precious stone was your covering. As the high priest was he who bare the crookedness of the nation of Yasharal, it was he who covered them. Do you understand? It was he who covered them. Ultimately, it is Yahushua HaMashiach, our high priest, Melchizedek, who bears our crookedness and who covers us. Who covers us. And so thus, there were 12 stones on the breastplate of the high priest, showing that he was the covering of the nation of Yasharal. He bore their crookedness. Every precious stone here was your covering, Hashatan. Read.
The ruby.
The ruby.
Topaz. And diamond.
Yes.
Beryl. Shoham.
Yeah.
And jasper.
Yes.
Sapphire. Turquoise. And emerald.
Yes.
And gold. The workmanship of your settings and mountings were prepared for you.
Yes.
On the day you were created.
On the day you were created.
You are the anointed cherub.
You were the anointed cherub, not a anointed cherub, the anointed cherub. He was the high priest of Yahuwah. The anointing is the seal of the office of a priest. The anointing is, yes it is, go and read the Torah. The anointing is the seal of the office of a priest. If we receive this anointing, this separation, we are now priests, men, priests in the order of Melchizedek. He was the anointed cherub. He bore the breastplate of a priest. He was a high priest. Read, little one.
That covered.
That covered. Priests cover. They cover as the Mashiach covers us, as he bears our crookedness. The job, the duty of a priest is to cover the sins, to cover the crime of the people, to bear their crookedness. He was a priest that covers. Come on, little one.
And I placed you. You were on the Kadush mountain of Elohim.
You were on the Kadush mountain of Elohim. It is the priest that comes in the presence of Yahuwah. As the priest went beyond the veil, and only the priest could go beyond the veil, as only the priest can come in the presence of Yahuwah. You were on the very mountain of Yahuwah. Read.
You walked up and down in the midst of stones of fire.
You walked up and down in the midst of the stones of fire. He was the high priest, the high priest of Yahuwah. And he's got a legal right to something. He's got a legal right. Now, the master showed us in I believe it was Numbers, what chapter that little one we just read?
18, 1 through 20.
Numbers chapter 18, that there's a portion that belongs to the high priest who represents Melchizedek. First fruits were one, and also the good portions from the offerings, they belong to him. But the fat and the kidneys and the appendage that's on the liver, these are not to be eaten. These are unclean things that process toxins and the uncleanness in the body, and you are to wholly consume them on a fire. In other words, you are to destroy them. You are to destroy them. There's a greater separation going on. There's the portion. A portion is being separated unto Melchizedek, first fruits are being separated unto Melchizedek. And the unclean thing, the liver, the kidneys, and the appendage on the liver and the fat is being separated unto Hasatan for destruction, the unclean. This is his portion. He was a priest. And he's coming back for his portion. He's coming back for his portion. This leads me to a conversation that I had with a beloved one earlier this week. And the master began to give him a dream. And he recounted to me that he had this dream from last Shabbat for at least a week straight, continuously. He continued to have this dream. And in this dream, he saw a flaming sword, a dividing sword, a flaming sword in this dream. And in the dream, this flaming sword, it cut, it divided. It divided and it cut a perfect slab of meat. A perfect slab of meat. And that there was one portion of the meat that was clean. There was one portion of the meat that was clean. And we know that the clean portions of the meat go to the high priest. And our high priest is Melchizedek, Yahushua HaMashiach, who is separating his portion, doing a greater separation. But on the other side, as he recounted, he said he saw a bunch of unclean meats. He saw kidneys. He saw the appendages of liver, and he saw fat. And it was piled up upon, just piled up, assimilating body, piled upon bodies. A great multitude of bodies piled up upon one another as that high priest is coming for his portion. He is coming for the unclean part that is destined for destruction, that is not edible, that is not suitable for the high priest, but that is reserved for destruction. He's coming for it. Yes, the greater separation has begun. And he who used to be a high priest is coming for his portion, the unclean portion, because he is the father of the unclean. And he's coming for all those who are unclean, who will not obey righteousness, who are ignoring this message of the greater separation, who do not understand the importance of the circumcision, the sign, the seal, and the mark of the everlasting covenant, that split, that cut, that divide, that separation, that separates the good portion from the unclean portion, that divide, that separates the portion for the high priest, who's coming soon, Melchizedek, for his first fruit, for the portion that is suitable for him. But that other one, who was also the high priest at one time, he's coming back for his portion. He's coming back for those livers. He's coming back for the kidney, for the appendage on the liver, and for the fat, for the unclean thing. He's coming back for it. And it's going, as he saw in that dream, piled up unlike he has ever seen before. And indeed, if those days are not shortened, no flesh is going to remain. No flesh is going to remain. The time is out for playing games. There is a greater separation going on, and it's going to separate you from those you love. It's going to separate you from everything. The cost is great. The cost is great. Do not miss the hour, the time of visitation. Do not miss it. Seek him. Seek him. Seek Yahushua HaMashiach. Acknowledge him. Acknowledge him as your crime offering, as the blood that was shed to redeem you, to resurrect you from death and to life. I'll eat of his flesh and drink of his blood. Partake of the Ruach HaKadosh. Allow him to circumcise your wicked heart and to separate you unto righteousness. To seal you with the seal of the living Elohim. Tashubah. Repent. be immersed in the name of Yahushua HaMashiach for the remission and the forgiveness of sin, and receive the promise, the gift, the Ruach HaKadosh. For the promise is to you and to those who are far out, for as many as Yahuwah, our Elohim, shall call. He is the greatest separation, Yahushua HaMashiach. Without him, you are left to destruction. You are left to Hasatan, who was a high priest, who is coming for the unclean portion. He's coming for his portion. This is unprecedented time. Do not miss your time of visitation as this greater separation is occurring in the earth. 144,000 worldwide who are separated unto righteousness, who have separated themselves from every unclean matter, who are following the Lamb's voice wherever he goes, and who will not follow another voice. Come on, let's round this thing up, little one. Give us another precept.
Revelation 14, 1 through 5.
Revelation chapter 14 now, verses 1 through 5. Revelation chapter 14, verses 1 through 5. Revelation chapter 14, verses 1 through 5. The greater separation has begun. The destroyer comes. Don't miss your time of visitation. Many are called, but few are chosen. Not all will come. Do not mourn. Revelation 14, 1 through 5, beginning at verse 1.
And I looked and saw a lamb standing on Mount Zion, and with him 144,000, having his Father's name written upon their foreheads. And I heard a voice out of the heaven, like the voice of many waters, and like the voice of loud thunder. And I heard the sound of harpists playing their harps, and they sang a renewed song before the throne, and before the 4 living creatures, and the elders. And no one was able to learn that song except the 144,000 who were redeemed from the earth. They are those who are not defiled with women, for they are maidens. They are those following the Lamb wherever he leads them
Wherever
on.
he leads them on, a higher degree of separation, a priesthood. His portion as Melchizedek. Read.
They were redeemed from among men,
Yes.
being first fruits to Elohim.
Being first fruits to Elohim. We just read this in Numbers chapter 18, where the first fruits are reserved for the high priest. He is high priest. He is Melchizedek. These are those of whom he is their husband, and they are his bride. He has had relations with them. He has entered them. For those of you who are hard of understanding, he had sex with them in a fleshly, in a corpse, speaking carnally. He entered them as a man enters a woman, whereby forming a circumcision of the heart, and became their husband, causing a divide, a split, a circumcision in the heart, sealing them with the seal of the living Elohim, writing the name of the Father upon their forehead, calling them out to be his first fruit, his portion as Kahan Gadol. That greater separation, 144,000 identified by the circumcision, the separation, the divide, the greater separation, done only by him. It is Yahuwah, and Yahuwah and Yahushua are one. It is he who separates us in accordance with the Torah. It is he who separates us unto himself in this season, 144,000. Read.
And to the Lamb, and in their mouth was found no falsehood, for they are blameless before the throne of Elohim.
Barak Yahuwah. Barak Yahuwah. I think we got one more precept, little one.
Exodus 13, 1 through 5.
Barak Yahuwah. Read this last precept and we're done. The master's done.
Oh, okay.
Well, actually, no. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I'm sorry. 2 more precepts. Exodus chapter 13. Shamut chapter 13. Exodus Shamut chapter 13, verses 1 through 13. Yeah. Beginning at verse 1. Come on, read, little one.
And Yahuwah spoke to Moshe, saying,
Yes.
Separate to me all the firstborn.
Hear him. Separate. We're talking about a separation, a greater separation. Separate unto me. Separate unto me all the firstborn. It is the firstborn that receives the inheritance. That receives the inheritance, that partakes of the inheritance. It is the firstborn who is in covenant with his people. Unfortunately, Ephraim, who is the firstborn, is still in his folly, is still amongst the nations operating in his folly. And for the most part, Ephraim is reserved. The unclean portion is reserved for Hashatan, the destroyer, to destroy the flesh, to destroy the flesh, to kill the flesh, so that his soul will be saved. so that his soul will be saved. Nevertheless, he is separating now in this season. It's always been about separation, and we have always been a separated people. Separate unto me all the firstborn. Read.
The one opening the womb.
Yes.
Among the children of Yasharal. Among man and among beasts. It is mine.
It is mine. It belongs to me.
And Moshe said to the people, remember this day in which you went out of Mitzrayim, out of the house of slavery. For by strength of hand Yahuwah brought you out of this place. And whatever is leaving shall not be eaten. Today you are going out in a new month of Abib. And it shall be when Yahuwah brings you into the land of the Canaanites, and the Katites, and the Amorites, and the Kawawites, and the Yabusites, which he swore to your fathers to give to you a land flowing with milk and honey. That you shall keep this service in the new month. 7 days you eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day is a festival to Yahuwah. Unleavened bread is to be eaten the 7 days, and whatever is leaven is not to be seen with you. And leaven is not to be seen with you within all your borders. And you shall inform your sons in that day, saying, it is because of what Yahuwah did for me when I came up from Mitzrayim. And it shall be as a sign to you on your hand and as a reminder between your eyes, that the Torah of Yahuwah is to be in your mouth.
Barak Yahuwah.
For with a strong hand Yahuwah has brought you out of Mitzrayim, and you shall guard this law at its appointed time from year to year.
He's getting ready to deliver his covenant people once more from Mitzrayim and bring us to Mount Zion, those of whom he is separated from for himself, those of whom he has redeemed from the earth, becoming first fruits to Elohim and of the Lamb. Redeemed from the earth, becoming first fruits of Elohim and of the Lamb, his covenant people. He only redeems his covenant people, his firstborn. Read.
And it shall be when Yahuwah brings you into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to you and your father, and gives it to you, that you shall give over to Yahuwah everyone opening the womb, and every firstborn that comes from your livestock. The males belong to Yahuwah, but every firstborn of a donkey you are to ransom with a lamb. And if you do not ransom it, then you shall break its neck.
Yes.
And every firstborn of man among your sons you are to ransom.
You are to redeem. You are to redeem. He's coming for a covenant people to redeem in accordance with the Torah. He's coming for a remnant to redeem us in accordance with the Torah. Those who are his covenant people, who bear the sign of the covenant, the separation, which is the circumcision, not one made with hands, the one in which our husband, when he has relations with us, as a man has relations with a woman, and enters a virgin, whereby causing a split, a divide, a separation, he in the same way enters us, and whereby splitting, dividing, separating, circumcising the heart, and whereby bringing us into covenant with him. It is Yahuwah who separates us. It is Yahuwah who circumcises us. Yahushua is the greater separation. Without him, there is no separation. There can be no separation. We can do not, and we will not go to Mount Zion. Hear the words of the Master. Hear his warnings. Repent, tashuba from your uncleanness. Seek that greater separation with all your heart, mind, and strength. While there is still time. While there's still time. We don't know how much time, but we know that it's near. It's near. Don't play Russian roulette. Don't think that you have time, because truly we have no more time. The ark has been seen. And once he has sealed the number of his people and separated them and given them the circumcision, he will seal no more until after the great distress. Hear the Master's warning here now. And the Master's going to conclude this, but hear his warning. Hear his warning. There is nothing new under the sun. Hear his warning in the book of Isaiah chapter 1. Ishayahu, Isaiah chapter 1. And we're going to read verses 1 through 20. Isaiah, Ishayahu, chapter 1, verses 1 through 20. Isaiah, Ishayahu, chapter 1, verses 1 through 20. This is a warning for you, Yahudah, and all those who aspire to life, whether you're Yahudah or whether you are Ephraim. If you come out of darkness now, Ephraim, you become a Yahudim, because it is Yahudah who goes first. It is Yahudah who will escape the hour of trial. Ephraim must go through distress. Must go through distress. This is a message to Yahudah from the Master. Beginning at verse 1. Read, little one.
The vision of Yahu, son of Ammutz, which he saw concerning Yehudah.
Which he saw concerning who?
Yahudah.
Yahudah. Listen, Yahudah. Read.
And Jerusalem in the days of Uzziyahu, Yathum, Akaz, Kazakah Yahu, sovereign of Yehudah. Hear, O heavens, and listen.
Hear, O Shamayim. Hear, O heavens, and listen. Read.
O earth, for Yahuwah has spoken.
For Yahuwah has spoken. Read.
I have reared and brought up children.
I have reared and brought up children, Yahudah. Read.
But they have transgressed against me.
But they have transgressed. You call yourself a Yahudim, but for your sake the name of Yahuwah is blasphemed among the nations. You call yourself a Yahudim, but you are not. And those of you who are true Yahudim, you need to take notice, lest you attach yourselves to them and be left to the valley of oh no. Saying, oh no, how did I end up here? Read, little one.
An ox knows his owner.
An ox knows his owner, Yahudah.
And a donkey his master's crib.
And a donkey his master's crib.
Yasharal does not know.
Yasharal does not know. I told you, I have not been sent but to his covenant people, to his remnant people, and his remnant people alone, because only they will hear and see and have hearts of understanding. Read.
My people have not understood.
My people have not understood.
Allah, a sinning nation.
A
people loaded.
A sinning nation, a people loaded. Read.
With crookedness.
With crookedness. Look around you, Yahudah. Look around at those who call themselves Yahudim but are not. Look at them. Look at them. Read, little one.
A seed of evildoers.
A seed of evildoers. Read.
Sons acting corruptly.
Sons acting corruptly. Read.
They have forsaken Yahuwah.
They have forsaken Yahuwah.
They have provoked the Kadush one of Yasharal.
They have provoked the Kadush one of Yasharal. They do not have the greater separation within them. They do not have him. They are separated from him. They are far from him. Some deny him. Some are Torah only and deny him. Some deny that he and Yahuwah are one. In either case, there are, and some deny that the New Testament, that the Ba'it Kadashah is even real, that is even authentic. They do not have the greater separation in them. Some acknowledge that Yahuwah is Yahushua. Some acknowledge that he has come, but he is not in them. It's not enough to acknowledge him. He must be in you. There must be a greater separation done in you. And if there is something visible in your behavior, in your speech, in your action, and your inactions, in your words. For out of the overflow of the heart, the mouth speaks. Do not deny the fruit, Yahudah. Do not ignore the fruit, lest you be led to the valley of oh no. Many will call on the name of Yahuwah Yahushua and say that Yahuwah Yahushua won, and will acknowledge him, but are still far from him. You will know them by their fruits. Read, little one.
They went backwards. Why should you be stricken anymore? You continue in apostasy. All the head is sick.
You continue in rebellion, apostasy. All the head is sick. Read.
And all the heart faints. From the sole of the foot to the head, there is no soundness in it. Wounds and bruises and open sores. They have not been closed or bound up or soothed with ointment. Your land is laid waste. Your cities are burned with fire. Strangers devour your land in your presence, and it is laid waste as overthrown by strangers.
And all of this because of your apostasy. Your apostasy, people of Yahuwah, because of your rebellion, all of this is coming. Judgment, wrath, correction, the destroyer is coming because of your uncleanness, because of your rebellion, because of your witchcraft, because of your apostasy, because you reject the stone, because you respect, you reject the stone that has become the chief cornerstone. You reject him. You reject the greater separation. The sword is coming upon you. The sword comes. The destroyer comes. He's coming for his portion because of your apostasy and your rebellion. Read, little one.
And the daughter of Zion is left as a booth in a vineyard, as a hut in a garden of cucumbers, as a besieged city. Unless Yahuwah of hosts had left to us a small remnant, we should have become like Sodom.
A remnant will be saved. A remnant will be saved. Read.
we would have been made like Amorah. Hear the word of Yahuwah, you rulers of Sodom.
Hear the word of Yahuwah. Read.
Give ear to the Torah of our Elohim, you people of Amorah.
Read.
Of what use to me are your many slaughterings, declares Yahuwah.
He is seeing you, Yehuda, as Sodom and Amorah. Yes, because you have assimilated in this wicked nation. You have assimilated in this wicked world. You have not separated. There is not a separation between you. There is not a true distinction. There is not a separation because the great separation is not in you. That circumcision, that divide is not in you. He has not had relations with you. Thus he sees you as Sodom and Amorah. He sees you as uncleanness and as unclean and wicked and perverse. This is how he sees you. Hear Sodom and Amorah. Read.
I have had enough of ascending offerings.
I had enough of your ascending offerings. Read.
And the fat of fed beasts.
And the fat of fed beasts. Read.
I do not delight in the blood of bulls.
I do not delight in the blood of bulls.
Or of lambs or goats.
Or of lambs or of goats.
When you come to appear before me.
When you come to appear before me.
Who has required this from your hand?
Who has required this from your hand?
To trample my courtyards.
To trample my courtyard.
Stop bringing futile offerings.
Stop bringing futile offerings, even the offerings of your lips and your even the offering of your lips, the bulls of your lips and your songs and your prayers. Stop bringing futile offerings unto him with unclean hands. You're seen as unclean and perverse. You're seen as Sodom and Amorah, and he sent me to warn you, Yahuwah. Least you be the portion of the destroyer, who was also a high priest, that portion of the fat and of the appendage of the liver and of the kidney. Hear his voice. If you hear his voice today, harden not your heart. Read, little one.
Incense. It is an abomination to me. New months, Shabbats, the calling of gatherings. I am unable to bear unrighteousness.
He's unable to bear unrighteousness. He don't want it. He wants your righteousness. He wants your obedience, Yahuwah. Read.
And assembly.
Mm-hmm.
My being hates your new months and your appointed times.
My being hates your new months and your appointed times, Yahuwah. Read.
They are a trouble to me.
They are a trouble to me.
I am weary of bearing them.
I am weary of bearing them. You gather as this great awakening continues, and the gatherings get larger and larger, and people began to assemble and to align themselves with the appointed times. But he's not impressed. He's not impressed because amongst them is much wickedness, amongst much perverseness, much uncleanness, much apostasy, much rebellion, and he's not impressed, Yahuwah. He's not impressed just because you keep the feast days. You're unclean, you're perverse, you're seen as Sodom and Amorah. And he's not impressed. He does not receive it. Because you reject him, he rejects you. You reject the greater separation, not unlike your fathers did in the wilderness. They rejected the greater separation. They rejected the Ruach HaKodesh, you stiff-necked and hard of heart people. Just like they rejected the Ruach HaKodesh, the greater separation, he who separates us. You do to this day. He remains a stumbling block to you. Read, little one.
And when you spread out your hands, I hide my eyes from you.
When you spread out your hands, he hides his eyes from you. Read.
Even though you make many prayers, I do not hear.
Even though you make many prayers, he does not hear them, because your ways are wicked. Your ways are perverse and unclean. And you're trying to hide. You're trying to hide behind your excessive talking and making it seem as though you are righteous, as making it seem as though you're clean. A righteous man, one who is truly righteous, does very little talking. A righteous man, he is known by his righteous fruit, not by his lips. You're not fooling anybody, Yahuwah. You're not fooling him. Your prayers are not being received by him. You're perverse, you're wicked. He sees you as Sodom and Amorah. He sees you as a menstruous woman. And you are the unclean portion of that one that used to be a high priest. The liver, the appendage on the liver, the kidneys, and the fat. You his portion. And he's coming soon for his portion. That portion is destined for destruction, to be wholly consumed in the fire. Destroyer is coming. Take heed. The greater separation has begun. The destroyer comes. Come on, little one.
Your hands have become filled with blood.
Yes.
Wash yourself, make yourselves clean.
Yes.
Put away the evil of your doing.
Put away the evil of your doings, Yahuwah.
from before my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Stop doing evil.
Stop doing evil.
Learn to do good.
Learn to do good, Yahuwah.
Seek right ruling.
Seek right ruling, Yahuwah.
Reprove the oppressor.
Reprove the oppressor, Yahuwah.
Defend the fatherless.
Defend the fatherless, Yahuwah.
Plead for the widow.
Plead for the widow, Yahuwah.
Come now and let us reason together.
Come now and let us reason together. Come on.
Though your sins are like scarlet,
Though your sins are like scarlet, Yahuwah.
they shall be as white as snow.
They shall be as white as snow, provided that you receive the greater separation. Yahushua HaMashiach. It is his blood, his dam, that washes us white as snow, and who separates us, who gives us the circumcision, the divide, the separation, separating us from death unto life, separating us from uncleanness, separating us unto righteousness. Come, let us reason together, Yahuwah. Come on.
Though they are red like crimson,
Though they are red like crimson,
they shall be as wool.
they shall be as wool.
If you submit and obey, you shall eat the good of the land.
If you submit and obey, Yahuwah.
But if you refuse and rebel,
But if you refuse and rebel,
you shall be devoured by the sword.
you shall be devoured by the sword. Thus says
The
Yahuwah.
mouth of Yahuwah has spoken.
The mouth of Yahuwah has spoken. Hear his words. The sword comes. The destroyer comes, and is coming with a sword. And the portion, the unclean portion, is his. As priest, is his to devour, to destroy, because he is the destroyer. It is his to destroy. But Yahuwah will use him as a golden cup in his hand to correct his people, to destroy the flesh, so that the soul will be saved. He does not desire this of us. He does not desire this for us, because he's a loving father, a compassionate father, and he desires for us to repent with our whole heart, to receive the greater separation, to have relations with him, so that we know him and he knows us, so that he circumcises the heart, he cuts, he splits, he separates and divides the heart, and separates and divides us from every unclean manner, and separates us unto righteousness and unto Mount Zion as his portion, to be waved before him as a wave offering, to be given a song that no one else can sing. Thank you, Master Yahuwah, for your continued warnings, for your continued word, for your continued love and loving commitment and compassion for your people, for you continue to cry out and spare not, and to warn your people because you love them. I pray, it is my prayer, that this word has gone forth in this hour as a hammer that shatters, shattering both rock and chains and shackles, and shattering and separating your people from all manner of wicked things, from all manner of unclean things, separating them unto you. It is my prayer that this word, this seed, has not been cast amongst the wayside, that it has not been cast on shallow soil, shallow ground, that it has not been cast amongst thorns, but that this seed, this word, this righteous word, this most important word has been scattered amongst fertile soil, fertilized soil, good soil, made conducive to the planting of seed, such that your living water, the Ruach HaKadosh, the greater separation, will come and water that seed, such as to cause that seed, that word, to grow, to become a mighty tree, producing fruit, good fruit, choice fruit, the fruit that leads to everlasting life, first fruit, to be gathered upon Mount Zion, to be weighed before you as a first fruit offering, well-pleasing and acceptable unto you. In the name of Yahushua HaMashiach, the greater separation, he who separates us, for it is Yahuwah who separates us. In his great name, we pray. So be it, so be it, so be it. For those of you on YouTube, once again, we're grateful that the Master has led you our way. Once more, if he leads you, if he has impressed upon your heart to gather with us live, to assemble with us live, once this teaching, this proclamation, this message has been uploaded, there will be an email address located within the email, the video description, of which you can use to contact us if you have a desire to fellowship with us. I pray that this message has indeed convicted you and edified you, that it has challenged you, that they continue to challenge you to do what is right and pleasing in the eyes of the master, that you would seek that greater separation, that you would seek that circumcision, that greater separation, the one not made with hands, for it is Yahuwah who separates us. It is my prayer that you would seek this with all your heart, mind, and strength, that you would seek, that you would ask, and that you would knock without ceasing. For what man who has a hungry child who asks for bread will give him a stone or a serpent? And so if you who knowing how to do evil know how to do good things for your children, how much so will your Father in Shamayim give of you the Ruach HaKadosh of those who ask of him? Seek that greater separation, the circumcision of the heart, that divide, that separation that separates us from death unto life, that separates us from wickedness to righteousness, from uncleanness from uncleanness unto righteousness. Until the next time we meet, Yahuwah barak you and guard you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and show favor unto you. Yahuwah lift up his face upon you and give you shalom. Thus you shall put my name on the children of Yashar'al, and I myself shall barak them. So be it, so be it, so be it. Shalom.